Morning, everybody. We're just working out some technical challenges with our screen share, and we'll be starting in just a moment. Hi, Sean.
Hi.
Oh, unless we want to. Hi.
You're not able to share your screen.
Okay, we're ready to go. So it's April 4th. It's 8:39. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Clear Creek Board of County Commissioners. And Randy Wheelock is absent. He is on an all-day transit trip to talk about transit and represent our interests down there. So thanks to him for doing that. We've got Sean Wood on Zoom. And the first thing on the agenda is administrative approval. Oh, and then I guess just for anybody watching, I'm the temporary chair, so I'll be chairing this meeting. First thing on the agenda, administrative approval of change of beneficial owner applications for TKN Industries doing business as Token Labs with the net.
Good morning. Quick and easy, all the departments, well, actually, no, I apologize. This application does not go out to the departments. The county just has to approve it and acknowledge the change that the business is making. They're adding a few new owners, and that's the extent of it.
Okay, you recommend we do so?
Yep.
Okay, consider it approved. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment on Zoom? I note that nobody is in the room. Oh.
Just one, and then I'm pick up, no mind.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Do I come up here?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, great.
If you can just tell us your name and what you're here for, and we'd love to hear what you have in mind.
Hey, good morning, y'all. Max Virgensi, Acting District Ranger for the Clear Creek Ranger District here on the Arapahoe and Roosevelt National Forest and Pawnee National Grassland. just want to come in and introduce myself to y'all. I reside at 316 West 9th Street in Leadville, Colorado. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not. However, I am here through the end of May in this acting role. And I just want to give you and provide some information that's happening on the ARP in 3 minutes or less really quickly. And I'm going to start first with the wildfire crisis strategy and what we're doing starting in the northern part of our forest. We've been working on getting some pretty big environmental analysis completed on the Canyon Lakes district up in Fort Collins. They were going through the draft EA for called the Black Diamond Project, which is condition-based management for fires and fuels, vegetation management. And we're also under comment for the draft EA for the St. Vrain Project, which is in the Boulder Ranger District. Furthermore, they're going through some more work with Pearson Park, which is outside of Twin Sisters and Allen's Park, to kind of make a pretty large-scale landscape condition-based management to actually really change the fire and fuels behavior. And why am I saying this right now to everybody here in Clear Creek County is because it's also happening on the Pike San Isabel, coming up from the South Platte Ranger District, Brian Banks and the district ranger there. And if you're thinking about the Colorado Front Range, it is what I consider the Pincher Project, where we here in Clear Creek, Gilpin to our north, and Jefferson County to the south are this last piece to connect and start to do this type of landscape scale projects. Clear Creek Watershed Forest Health Partnership is well aware of these opportunities that we have, and it's not going to happen this summer. However, I've requested a couple projects to start closing that door between going from north to south and south to north that are going to start to affect this area. So that's really good news on this end. Something for everybody, and I think I have 1 minute left, so I'll be really quick.
Take your time.
Something to recognize is that wildfire here in Clear Creek County, we really, at least in our memory, in anybody's memory that's lived here, we have not had a large wildfire in this county, and that is different than everywhere else on the Colorado Front Range, where folks are familiar with fire and how it can affect their water quality and their way of life and their wildlife. And so that's where up in Cameron Peak, East Troublesome, down south, Waldo Canyon, we had a 1,000-acre fire burn at 9,000 feet in the South Park Ranger District on the PSICC on Friday due to that wind event. People around the smoke understand the importance, and we're hoping that we're going to get ahead of it and be proactive here, and but it's going to take time. So I'm just really fortunate to have all y'all as part of our partners and as we move forward, and I think that there's going to be starting some analysis in fiscal year 24, which for the Forest Service starts October 1. So anyways, I just want to tell you while I'm here, I'm not sitting on my hands. I'm trying to get some work done for your community, and other things that I'm certain that Amy Saxon will be able to brief you on if she hasn't already on some recreation aspects. But that's all I wanted to say is just get a name to the face, see y'all in person, and look forward to seeing you out in the community too. So thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Always happy to hear about what's going on with the forest. And Scott Haas likes to say that on wildfire mitigation, we're driving the bus here, holding the map. And I like to remind him, I hope there's some gas in the tank.
Yeah,
So
trying.
Hey, George, do you mind if I ask a quick question?
feel free.
Hey, this is Sean. Sorry, I planned on being there in person today, but it took me forever to get out of my neighborhood. There was a snowplow from Jeffco stuck on Stagecoach. But anyway, there was a mitigation project I know that was scheduled for eastern Clear Creek, kind of behind near Brook Forest in that area. And I know that there were some access issues. And then I haven't really heard much about it in the last 5 or 6 months. Do you have a quick update on what's going on there?
Yes, we had some changes in our silviculturist, Kevin Zimlinghouse, that was responsible for designing that project within that isolated parcel, retired. And so it's taken a tactical pause on that regard. Also, there is an access issue where we're trying to figure out a landowner that will allow us access across their private property to get into that area. And so when we're talking about that eastern part of Clear Creek, we're also looking at other opportunities. And I know it's not in Clear Creek County, it's in Jefferson County. The Maxwell Falls, Cub Creek area is a natural progression from what they're doing on the South Platte Ranger District. So we're looking at other opportunities for treatment down there as well. And that Brook Forest, I need to get a hold of those landowners and see what they're up for and what they're not. And the concern I've heard and have not confirmed is they do not want to have logging trucks rumbling by their private property. And there would be quite a bit of that type of commercial activity out of there. So we're trying to figure out other access points to see if it's feasible. Because, yeah, the analysis has been moving forward, but the access is going to hold us up.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I know I haven't talked to the homeowner firsthand, but I've heard secondhand. He's concerned about the condition of the road and it being degraded. And I think the truth is the Forest Service would leave it in a better state than you guys found it, is because I think that's your general practice, right?
Yeah, and also within Brook Forest itself, there's a private property in holding beyond that, the gated area that has put in, I've heard, and I haven't seen it, probably $100,000 worth of earthwork and road maintenance and improvement within the Forest Service aspect portion for better access to their property. And they want to work with us. It's just the individual that's on the outside. And I don't want to, that's what it's purported. I have not been able to reach out to that individual and actually understand their concerns.
Okay, yeah. I'll follow up with you because I'm interested in that one as well. And I think that, I think it makes sense to push that one a little bit and see if we can make any progress.
Well, Sean, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a card of mine underneath your nameplate here. So when you get into the office, you can have it.
Okay. Hey, thanks so much. And thanks for the introduction.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise, and please do consider this board a partner in dealing with issues like that. It's important for an entire neighborhood,
Agreed.
the whole region.
I understand. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Max.
I'm not seeing anybody else raise their hand online or anything.
Okay, so we will close public comment. Thank you, Max. Next is county commissioner updates. Sean, would you like to start?
Sure. I don't think I really have anything, honestly. I'm happy to be thinking about mitigation again. And I'm looking forward to seeing if we can get that thing rolling again. One of the neighbors who owns a 35-acre parcel up there is a personal friend of mine, and he's very familiar with it. And we'll see what happens.
Okay. Let's see here. Updates from me. I mentioned a month or so ago that I was invited to serve on the NOCO Fireshed Executive Committee. Participated in the first meeting. That seems like a group that is going to be a lot of value to us, and their interest in trying to get a member of our board onto their executive committee, I think, is good news. They work with the Forest Service and the Forest Foundation to fund these landscape scale projects that were just discussed, and a lot of interest in moving into Clear Creek, like you just heard. So this is also kind of a call for us here in Clear Creek to, they need competent partners in this work, and we need to figure out how to be one. And I don't know that we've been one historically. The last large mitigation effort that the Forest Service did in Clear Creek County resulted in death threats to their staff. because of a lack of social license and public engagement and outreach around these projects. And so really
Was
will
that
be
the one
looking,
in Eastern Clear Creek, George?
correct. It was up on Sinton
Oh.
Road.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. And there is it's a formality for us to join the NOCO fire shed formally, that when I have those documents, I'll be bringing them to us to look into. And it's not a cost thing. It's just signing an MOU that we want to play nice and get access to other people's money to take care of our forests. The other thing is on the GROC, the opioid settlement region, a couple things there. 3 new settlements were made. Thank you, Brian, for signing the participation agreements in those settlements. It's an additional $18 million over the same 15-year span. So that was probably on your update. 4 more. And the other update is that the GROC has gotten through finalizing its 4 requests for proposals for its 4 project areas related to a co-responder program, harm reduction, acute substance use disorder care, and recovery housing are the 4 projects. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing who within our organization or among our partners in this county are going to be excited to apply for those funds. And I think that's it.
I did just think of one other one. Brian and I attended a meeting that came out of the IGA negotiations with the Clear Creek Fire Authority and all the different municipalities. It was the first meeting to all get together and review the criteria for the RFP for organizational analysis. I thought the meeting was very collaborative and productive. And by the end of it, I think we had fairly broad consensus, or I would just say broad consensus about what needed to be analyzed and what we were looking for. The only I would say, I believe Silver Plume did not have a representative there, but I know Brian's following up and perhaps he'll comment on this during his update. But Brian circulated a draft of what that RFP would look like last week. And we're moving forward. So I'm excited to be part of, getting this thing going.
Okay, thanks. Next on the agenda is county manager updates. Brian, what do you have for us?
A couple items for you. We were still trying to get the joint meeting scheduled with Gilpin County. They want to meet jointly on a Tuesday. So I'm hoping it can be one of our off Tuesdays, but we'll see what we can do about that. They were focusing in on a date in April, and now we're focused on May. So that is coming. We received a request from the Easter Seals, and we didn't get it in time to put it on the agenda, for a letter of support for them, that they're sending in a request to Congressman Neguse for congressional directed spending. I thought that deadline had passed, but they're asking us for a letter of support. So I don't know how the board feels about that, but
I think that not only has the deadline passed, but I think Congressman Neguse has made his selections, because I know that we supported the childcare facility $2 million ask, and Neguse selected it.
yeah, and they just the Easter Seals just reached out to us, so the timing is odd. So we'll follow up with them and find out if.
Nonetheless, I mean, I don't, can you tell me about the project briefly?
Yeah, I guess they have a health facility on campus, and it's for, children, that go to the camp if they get hurt or if they need some special medical attention while they're there at camp. They also use it as a backup kind of EOC, I guess. In case we had a natural disaster, they have offered it up to use it for medical emergencies we might have in the community. So they built this a couple of years ago, I think, and it only has like 2 or 3 beds. But they found that they have a need for a much larger size, kind of mini clinic at the Easter Seals campus. And so they're looking to expand that facility.
What was the financial ask?
It's a request for a support letter for them to request congressionally directed spending money from Congressman Nagusa's office.
Right. I'm curious to know what they're asking for Nagusa's office. What kind of a financial ask?
Sorry.
I don't know the exact cost. I can find out for you. They did not tell me an exact number.
Yeah. One thing I remember about our conversation before, I think we, as a board, decided it was important for us to essentially pick winners and losers rather than supporting all the endorsing all the different ones. And we did select the childcare. I guess I'll just leave it at that.
We also wrote in that letter that we were supporting it exclusively.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you and I can talk offline and we can figure out maybe even this is too late anyway. And then we can work with the Easter seals.
Okay.
Just a heads up, I am looking to be out of the office the week of May 8th. Take some time off to head down to Arizona. That's just kind of a heads up. There is an emerge meeting that week. May 10th is the next emerge meeting, but I'm looking to take some time off that week. So just a heads up. Your next meeting date is Monday, April 17th. That's a retreat for us to talk budget. Location still yet to be determined. We'll have some light breakfast in a room wherever that's at, 8:30 start, have some lunch and after lunch at some point. So again, April 17, we'll be back in touch with the official location. As George indicated, I did submit the opioid settlement agreement documents to the state to opt into that settlement to bring more money into the region. So that's good. And then as Sean mentioned, we did have the meeting last week of the RFP committee to start drafting an RFP for an organizational analysis of the Clear Creek Fire Authority. It was a good meeting. There was complete consensus in the room, I think, with respect to all of the topical areas. It'll be interesting. It's going to be quite a broad analysis, and we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see what that dollar value comes back at as we get proposals back from firms that are out there. So we're hoping to get that finalized in the next week or so we can get that out on the street and get that work underway.
Just a quick comment on that. I think it's important for us to be able to find the funding for this analysis to be comprehensive.
Yeah.
It's what the recommendation was, and we can't afford to shortchange it.
Yeah, I think everybody in the room thought all of the items that we got up on a flip chart with respect to a scope of a RFP or a review were all important. So to that end, I think you're right. We do need to figure out how to fund it. We do have some market money still sitting out there that we could use to fund that. So.
And George, one comment that I made it clear that I was not representing the BOCC, that I was only representing my own opinion. But I said, in my view, the county was unlikely to allow budget to be a major concern just because this was so important. So, because the towns did express concern about the scope and how expensive this could be. And yeah, that was my comment.
Okay. Maybe there's an opportunity for some outside funding or something.
Yeah, and I'm going to shoot the RFP over to Kelly and Jeremy also, just so they get a look at it before it goes out. I got some questions for them on some stats that I put in the RFP itself. So.
Okay. And I'll report to them on the meeting that's coming up pretty quick, maybe tomorrow. No.
Okay. And then we are shooting towards the next meeting in April for a co-response work session. And just an update on where we're at. We're getting close. So we're actually going to have to come back to you with a request for an FTE to fund the social worker position. So that'll all come out on the update that we provide to you and hopefully in 2 weeks. So, and then Beth has one item. It's to cede some of my time to Beth.
JCRB, juvenile, oh God.
Community Review Board.
Community Review Board, thank you. Yes, many moons ago, about 20, we developed this board to help review applicants that wanted to go from Ridgeview High School to the Q House. Basically, kids with a troubled history that were trying to get back into normal life, and the Q House was kind of that graduating point. And in order to get accepted there, they had to accomplish some things at Ridgeview, and then this board, the JCRB, would look at those applicants and determine who was eligible to go there. This board's been in place for probably almost 20 years. It has a lot of members. We ended up adding this whole board appointment to our big, long annual appointment list. And basically, the people who are heading that up are County Judge Jones and also Sheriff Rick Albers. And we had a gal recently apply for boards and commissions through our website, and she wanted to be appointed to that board. And I didn't know if that should be, if you guys wanted to interview her and add her to that board, or if you want the JCRB group to interview her and then ask for your appointment by resolution. I don't know how to do it, but they really want her. They really like her.
How have we done it in the past?
They've just brought us a list once a year and said, here's our people. We have done individual appointments before by resolution that happen like in the middle of the year that aren't on the annual appointment list. So, but most of the time we have a list and we add it into the annual appointments and we just do it as a blanket.
I'm pretty interested in conducting interviews for all of our boards.
Okay.
And, it doesn't have to be, it could probably be a 15-minute interview or something, but
Okay.
I'm pretty interested in hearing from her and
Okay.
likely to appoint her if the JCRB thinks she's good. But
Okay.
part of that is just bringing some awareness to these boards and these opportunities and how important they are.
Okay.
John, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I agree that consistency is important. One thing I would note is Ridgeview doesn't exist anymore. The governor closed it and turned it into a homeless place.
What was that?
Ridgeview High School doesn't exist anymore. It's closed.
Right. Oh, yes. Right. I knew that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So they're still being fed there through DOC, I think, or DYC, Department of Youth Corrections. So,
Yeah.
and therefore some cause for the JCRB to have an important role because we're getting students from a different facility now. And I think what that is that's permanently supportive housing now, right? To try to deal with the homelessness crisis.
at the Q House?
No. Ridgeview.
Ridgeview.
That was my list.
Next on the agenda is, oh, and look, we're on time. Local Liquor Licensing Authority. We're now sitting as the Local Liquor Licensing Authority to consider approval of a special event permit for Easter Seals of Colorado Rocky Mountain Village. Nanette?
Morning again. So this application is set for a hearing today. And Sarah Wadley, who has been my contact, contacted me yesterday to ask if she needed to appear. And I had 2 applications pending, and I incorrectly told her that this was administrative today. It's an event, they're events that I think the board is familiar with. I'm hoping they would be comfortable going forward with approving this application. If you're not, I can try to get somebody online to come back shortly to address it. I just wanted to put that out there.
I think the application has enough information for me to make a decision. Sean, how about you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, perfect. All the departments have approved. I did get a late approval from environmental health, so we should be good to go.
And just to be clear, since this is a hearing, if there is any public comment, we would just want to hear it, but.
Yeah, so the hearing is open for this special event permit. Is there any public comment?
Nope.
Okay. Seeing none, we're going to close the public comment period. Any additional commentary from you?
No problems with the application. We would recommend approval.
Okay, any questions for staff from you, Sean?
No.
None from me either. Do we have a motion to approve the special event permit?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you.
Motion passes. Next is the consent agenda. Is there anything that we would like to pull off of the consent agenda? I'd like to make a comment on number 2, but I don't think I need to pull it off.
Sounds good. Were you thinking of reading it? Or is it it's actually pretty long, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I'm going to read it. Just really quick, a comment on number 2, ratification of approval of resolution 2327. in appreciation of Bojo's in Idaho Springs for their scrumptious and meritorious service to Clear Creek County. Saturday was their 50th anniversary of Bojo's. It was a great event. We had Joe Nagoose came, and members of the governor's staff came, and a lot of compliments to Bojo's. They're well-deserved. They're an upstanding business in Idaho Springs, and have really helped to build our economy, and have provided a lot of leadership in terms of what it means to be a business that has a positive role in our community. They provide free space to people whenever they need it. If you're trying to do something and pizza is helpful, you can get pizza to do pretty much whatever you're trying to do. If you're trying to do the PTA, if you're a small nonprofit looking for meeting space, whatever it is. And then also, I think, pretty big announcement, and just another example of their leadership in the space of good business practice was they announced that they are moving to an employee ownership model, which I believe is kind of the next step in helping business figure out how to play a positive role in our society. And I really want to congratulate them for that. So those are my comments.
Are they creating an ESOP? Do you know? I'm just kind of curious.
I don't know the details.
Okay.
So that said, I'll read the consent agenda. Item number 1, consideration of approval of the warrant register. Number 2, consideration of ratification of approval of resolution number 23-27 in appreciation of Bojo's Idaho Springs for scrumptious and meritorious service to Clear Creek County. Consideration of approval of Delta Dental Benefits contract for county employees. Consideration of approval of Cigna Health and Life Insurance Company Administrative Services Contract and amended coverage application. Consideration of approval of resolution number 23-28, resolution to appoint member to the Open Space Commission.
I move we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Our next item is a public hearing, so we should probably start that at its advertised time of 9:15. So the board's going to go into recess for the next 10 minutes until 9:15. So,
That was all the time.
okay, we are ready to get started just as soon as all the commissioners are present. All right. So it is 9:16. This is a public hearing to consider resolution number 23-23, resolution for the CDOT I-70 Floyd Hill 1041 permit hearing. I think we're starting with Fred Rolandhagen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Fred Rolandhagen, Planning and Building Services Manager for the county. I'm also the case manager for this case, which is 1041 permit case number SI 2023-0001. Applicants from representatives from CDOT are also here. They'll to make a presentation. What I'm going to do is provide my staff report. I will try to keep it as short as possible, and then turn it over to the applicants to make their presentation. And we're happy to take any questions when you have them. So I have some maps in a PowerPoint that I'm going to share. Okay. So as I said, this 1041 permit case number SI 2023-0001, otherwise known as the Floyd Hill I-70 project. Real quick, very quickly, wanted to go through the project approach, which is a little bit different than what we have than some of the previous projects, I-70 projects. The Floyd Hill project is going to be designed and constructed in three sections. What's called the east, the west, and the central section. And so with that, final designs for each section are prepared separately and will be reviewed by the county separately in order for CDOT to begin construction in a timely manner. So what that means is you have three separate sections in the whole project, And so as the final designs come for each section, they will come to the county for review in a public hearing process and approval as an action item as they're available. What this does, though, is this allows us to consider and make a decision on one section, and if approved, they can move forward with construction before they provide the final design for the subsequent section. So right now we are considering the east, what's called the east section, which is going down the hill. It begins in Jefferson County, goes over Floyd Hill and down to about Johnson's Gulch before you hit the curve, which would be known as the central section. So as shown on this, and there's my pointer, as shown on this map, the east section is in purple going down the hill. The central section is going to be what is in yellow, going through the curves, the hard curves, and then the west section will begin just east of the Hidden Valley interchange and end within the city of Idaho Springs. And this is a quick timeline. Hope there it comes. This is going to be this is a rough timeline. This is what was presented in the FONSI, the finding of no significant impact, which was part of their application. So we are looking at the east section right now. Final design is in March of 23, and we are considering that today. Their anticipation construction date to begin is going to be very quickly, and hopefully in May of 2023. They're actually splitting the central section up into two parts, but the final design will come will be available sometime in the fall of '23. That's when we expect to have that particular application, and we can review it so they can begin construction later in the fall of '23. And then so on for the west section. Let's see, looks like the west section will have a similar time frame. And then the second part of the central section will be later on. If there is an opportunity for us to combine things like the first part of the central section and the west section, we can do that. But we will have to roll with the flow and take what we get and then review that part when it's available.
Can you share, this is probably the best time to do that, how the central section is being split up?
Yeah,
Sure.
we can speak to that if you'd
do
like.
that?
So one of the things that you see here is Central Section 1 and Central Section 2. And what we really look at is the critical path timeline for the project. And we see an opportunity there that if we can get out in front of the main Central Section bridge and do some elements of that early, we pick up some schedule on the back end. And so the Central Section's the most difficult section. It has the most structure in it, and it's the most difficult to design. And we're currently tracking towards 30% design right now on that central section. So when we look at design and what it takes to design it, if we can pull some of these elements out that get us out there and start maybe working on some foundation, some access of that, that would buy us some time on the back end. And so we're looking at we're really calling it an access package that we might try and get out later this fall that would buy us some of that time. And specifically, if you look at the central section where you go down around the curve at the bottom of the hill, we call that the hill section because if you look over the side of I-70, that's a very steep 45-degree angle hill. And to construct on that is very difficult, and you have to build an access road up to it. So that would be one of the components that we would be interested in taking out of the package, the main package, and getting started on that so that we could build that access, immediately get in there and start building those foundations because that is on our critical path. The second section that we would like to do that is really tied to right of way and things along those lines is in what we're calling the saddle cut area. That is after you go around the corner where your I-70, rather than kind of curve around through the canyon, we're cutting through Sawmill Gulch there. And if we could get in there and start accessing that and doing some of the removals and rock cuts that it needs, that would buy us some schedule time as well. So we're looking at kind of that access package to come out before the primary central section package.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so very quickly, go through a project description, and what I'm also for the record, what I'm talking about is all in my staff report. Staff report was presented or submitted last week, so I'm using my staff report as a very rough outline as I'm going through. So if anybody has a copy of my staff report and wants to follow with me, they certainly can. But very quickly go through a rough general project description. This is the description for the whole project and not just any particular section. But we are first of all adding a third westbound travel lane to operate as a tolled express lane. Two, we are constructing the missing 2-mile section of the frontage road between US Highway 6 at Two Bears intersection and the Hidden Valley intersection. We are adding an eastbound auxiliary lane, which would be a 4th lane going up Floyd Hill eastbound. It would end at the top of the hill where the overpass is right now. They are reconstructing interchanges, flattening horizontal curves, and replacing deficient bridges. And they are also making surface improvements and ADA improvements to the Clear Creek Greenway, to this section of the Clear Creek Greenway that's part of this project, as well as environmental mitigation, enhancing wildlife connectivity, air and water quality, stream conditions and recreation. So wanted to talk very quickly about the CSS process because it's very important to this project as well as any other, as well as other CDOT projects. Just to let you know, the CSS is a collaborative and interdisciplinary approach that involves all stakeholders to develop a transportation facility that fits its physical setting and preserves scenic, aesthetic, historic, and environmental resources while maintaining safety and mobility. So it considers the whole context of the area within which the transportation project will exist. And the principles include mainly employment of early and continuous involvement of public stakeholders throughout the project development process. So with that, the CSS process has been going on for quite a while. We have not just started review of the project. County representatives have been part of the CSS process for about a little over 6 years, or perhaps much over 6 years from today. The CSS process contains a number of teams and a number of task forces like the project leadership team, a technical team, and issue task forces that address particular issues like wetlands and wildlife. And that's what the SWEEP and ALIVE task forces are for, as an example. The CSS informed the environmental assessment and eventual selection of the preferred alternative. The environmental assessment is part of the NEPA process, and the final product is a FONSI, finding of no significant impact. And those things are in the staff packet. Those are exhibits in this for this project. Okay. Go through the project alternatives, which are found in the application in the FONSI portion. There were 3 alternatives that were considered: a no action alternative, a canyon viaduct alternative, and then a tunnel alternative. And as you see in the application, the canyon viaduct, or what they're calling the canyon viaduct alternative, came out to be the preferred alternative. And it came out ahead of the tunnel, according to the FONSI, mainly because of 3 things. It fits into the canyon with less blasting and rock excavation. You have reduced roadway infrastructure adjacent to the creek, and less complicated operations because you're not having to manage a tunnel. Clear Creek, we received the application in February, I believe it was, beginning of February. And part of the process is to send out referrals. Clear Creek County staff sent out referrals to our referral agency list, adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the right of way. And we also advertised it in the newspaper, the Clear Creek Current, and also put all of the information up on the county's website under an active pages page that the planning department has, and directed anybody who was interested in knowing more about the project to that particular page. With that, we received just 3 comments back, one from the tourism board, one from and then 2 others from property owners in the area, one from Albert Fry and Sons and another from an adjacent homeowner to the I-70 right-of-way in the Saddleback area. The Clear Creek tour.
Just kick you out.
Yep, I got kicked off or something.
Just try sharing again.
Okay.
Bear with us just a moment while we get that presentation back up.
There you go.
Okay. The Clear Creek Tourism Board had some concerns about the entryway sign, the Welcome to Clear Creek County sign, and wanted to be sure that it was not damaged during this process. This is based on some past experience that apparently occurred on the west side of the county with some work that was done near the Eisenhower Johnson Memorial Tunnels. Apparently there was some damage to the sign. So that was their concern, and that was a referral comment that they submitted. Albert Fry and Sons had some particular requests regarding the view from the interstate into their quarry. However, Staff notes that this is really in the central section of this project. And so staff is recommending that we really look at that during the evaluation of the central section. We've already sent the comment to CDOT for them to consider and respond to during that time period of the review of the central section. Then we received a comment from an adjacent homeowner to the I-70 right-of-way, Mary Starasta, who is a homeowner and had concerns about impacts of construction traffic, of construction to her private property, concerned about any potential damage being done to retaining walls to her structure itself. There was some response to CDOT. CDOT has a process of review of existing conditions and then a review of any impacts that might have happened after construction. I'll let CDOT go into that during its presentation, but staff is satisfied with the process that CDOT has for identifying any potential damage that might occur due to construction. It is not. Okay,
The internet is maybe having too many people on it.
maybe so.
Try. There we go. Now try resharing.
Okay. Sorry about that. I will try this again.
Going once. Can you stop sharing and try to share again?
Yep.
Click your heels together 3 times.
No, don't ask me why it does this.
Click
I
your
thought you were
heels.
supposed to twinkle your nose.
That'll
To get better at that.
Either.
That's why it's not working.
Where's the new thing? Is this the new one? Oh boy, where does this stretch from here?
We're gonna go ahead and what's the formal term? We're gonna pause this hearing. That's not the formal term.
Recess? No.
Recess.
Yeah, we're just gonna go in a quick recess. We'll come back on when we have our technical challenges solved. Yep, back on.
We are, okay.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you. Okay, so we finished with the referrals. Okay, so those were the only referrals that we received, were those three referrals. Let me go in very quickly. I'm gonna, wanted to provide a copy of the zoning map as well as our future land use map. This is our zoning map. It's fairly big. It identifies pretty much the entirety of the Floyd Hill area with the county line on the far east side of the map. And you can see Idaho Springs and Central City limits on the upper left-hand corner. Mainly wanted to indicate what the zoning of the properties are along this stretch of the I-70 corridor. Most of it is residential in nature. Most of the property is colored in this yellow color, which is our MR1 zoning district. Mountain Residential allows for single-family residential use on properties. There's a little bit of green area right here at the curve, which is on a very, very high hill. It's not at the same elevation of I-70 for those who are zooming in and don't know the lay of the land. The green area is a large lot residential zoning district. So it allows for single family residential use, but on larger lots. And most of those properties are currently developed. You have the area in red is zoned PD with specific uses. Most of the PD property that's along the I-70 corridor are various miscellaneous commercial uses. For example, the Alfry and Sons Quarry is located up here on these red parcels that I'm pointing out with my pointer. Go up to the top of Floyd Hill here. These red, smaller red parcels on the north side of I-70 are also used for commercial purposes. As we know, the Floyd Hill Office Park is up there along with some mini storage and other commercial uses. The blue on the south side of I-70 is commercial property. A lot of those parcels are smaller parcels. As you know from the public hearing last week, this one parcel is planned to become a conservation easement, the big blue parcel there, so that will not be used as commercial property. The Clear Creek High School is located on one of these residential properties down here to the south of I-70 close to the county line. High schools and public schools are a permitted use in the residential zoning district. So that's why that property is zoned residential, the Clear Creek High School property. Okay. Let me go on to, I'm pulling up the future land use map now that is in the Clear Creek County 2017 Comprehensive Master Plan. Not a whole lot of changes anticipated for this particular area. I-70 rolls along here. I'm following it with my cursor as it goes up, makes the curve into the valley and hits the city limits of Idaho Springs, which is this white area here. The yellow is identified as residential. So planned to be residential, remain as residential in nature. The lighter cream color is a large lot residential future land use. The green is an open space or parkland future land use, and most of the area within the valley, in the curves within the valley is to be remain as open space. A lot of that some of that property has been acquired by the county already for open space or protection purposes. The black signifies the future land use of mining, and that is where the Wallstrom aggregate quarry is currently located. The red over here at the top of Floyd Hill signifies a multiple use designation, which would include some sort of a combination of commercial and residential uses at the top of Floyd Hill. Okay. I'm not going to go through every criteria. There's a lot of criteria for approval in this particular application. For a 1041 permit like this, there are 21 general criteria that we review. And in addition to that, there are 14 additional criteria that is specifically applicable to site selection of arterial highways. So I'll just, and all of that criteria is in my staff report, and everybody has had the opportunity to take a look at that. As an overview, a 1041 permit shall be approved if the project complies with the criteria and any applicable additional criteria in the chapters that are related to the project, in this case, a site selection of arterial highways. If the project does not comply, or if the board does not find that the project complies with any one or more of these criteria, the permit shall be denied. Or it can be approved with conditions that would ensure compliance with all of the criteria. So we staff reviewed the application against the 21 general criteria and 14 additional criteria. Just as an overview, general criteria looks at things like appropriate rights, permits, approvals. Is there financial and technical capability of the applicant? What kind of impacts are there on local government or local government operations, impacts on economic, environmental, and cultural resources, master planning, vision and direction, design considerations. Are there any nuisances or hazards related to the project, and as well as access considerations? The additional specific criteria that's specific to the a highway project includes asks us to consider things like impacts to local traffic circulation, consideration of alternatives to the highway project. Does the highway project create or facilitate a separation of communities, which generally we don't want? Restriction of mobility, are there issues on restriction of mobility from a local community's perspective? Is there a clear and reasonable need for the project? Are there any impacts to local growth patterns and local services and infrastructure? And are there any impacts to visual or scenic resources? So that's what we look at. I'm going to go right into my staff recommendation, because staff recommendations comes with some conditions, and those conditions are things that are focused on some of the particular criteria that we wanted to focus on. In general, we believe that the criteria has been met or can be met with these particular conditions. So staff's recommendation is approval with conditions. The conditions include things include conditions related to water quality monitoring and testing, noise monitoring, both during and after construction, air quality monitoring, as well as continuing with the CSS process into the construction, during construction. And then it also requires CDOT to submit plans, future plans related to this project when ready, which includes traffic management plan, an emergency plan, and a communication plan. And those would be submitted to us, be presented to the Board of County Commissioners in a working session for discussion and clarification. And then also, staff is recommending a condition related to the county welcome sign that there should be no damage to the welcome sign, or any damage should be remedied afterwards. Okay. So that's in my staff report. That's in the draft resolution for approval. That's in the staff packet. There are a couple minor revisions, tweaks to a couple of the conditions after we pass that resolution on to CDOT. One is in the water quality condition, And we're recommending a minor change where the water quality testing plan to be developed in conjunction with the Floyd Hill context sensitive solutions and the sweep process, which is actually the appropriate place to have it, which could also include adding additional testing downstream of Johnson Gulch rather than trying to make a specific requirement in this condition. We wanted to let the CSS process identify the best solution for that. The other minor revision is under noise, and it's a technical change because I'm not technically savvy in this, but we changed how noise would be measured as recommended by CDOT. So we changed to be noise shall be measured by 1 hour equivalent sound level metric. Those are the two minor changes to the draft resolution. And I'm happy to discuss those if anybody has any questions, but at this time, staff would recommend approval of the draft resolution that's in your packet with these minor changes in the conditions of approval. Are there any questions?
Sean, defer to you.
Thanks, Fred. That was a good report. My question is, I understand the conditions about monitoring. Do we have any thoughts about what we plan on doing with that information when it comes to noise and air quality and water quality?
I can try to answer that, Fred.
Could you please? Thank you.
I think one of the things that we discussed when we made the edit to the water testing specificity sentence was acknowledging that a lot of the water testing was going to be needed. We were going to need to evaluate it in context of the whole project. And so that's one piece. And then the second piece is really, to your point, Sean, is how do we then identify, once we identify if there is problems with the condition of water in the creek or other issues with water, what then do we do about it? And that's when that's when we need to identify mitigations at the source of is there something we can do to limit the amount of snow removal materials or change something at the source? And so that is part of the ongoing review of all of the drainage systems and the control measures that CDOT is designing for each of the different sections, and identify what additional water testing systems need to be in place, and then what are the mitigation steps. And all of that will be evaluated throughout each package as it's submitted in the 1041 process. And then with the final submittal, we'll come up with the full conditions for water testing and mitigation of our 1041 permit.
And is it fair to assume that the monitoring equipment would be put in place before there was major progress on these projects, so we would have a baseline to compare any future numbers to?
Well, yes. I mean, I think that will depend a little bit. There is water testing. There are 4 water testing stations right now in the county and the creek. And so the current water testing that is in place does offer baseline information. And so that will be part of the ongoing discussion, is when and how does the new drainage and control measure designs, how does that fit in with the existing water testing that is present now? What additional water testing would we need to put in place to evaluate the control measures and drainage that is being added for each section? And then how do we figure out how effective each of those systems are? But yes, we do need to make sure there's a baseline. And there is a really good water data that CDOT has been collecting for years.
That sounds good. I would just expand that scope to include noise and air quality as well. And my expectation would be, you know, in that we're doing something that's modern and better than what we had before, that my expectation would be all of those numbers would either stay the same or improve.
Gotcha.
I'm just going to piggyback on that because I have questions about that particular condition as well. Am I reading correctly? 2 regulatory grade air quality monitors have been installed already, and you're collecting data now.
They have been, yep. We have one location, Idaho Springs, and then one location at the top of Floyd Hill near the fire station. They have been collecting data since January. We are logging it. We're working to set up a dashboard on our project website that will report some of the data, and then we have to work with you guys as well to figure out, you know, it's collecting a lot of different data and what to do with that as well. But we're going to set up a working group to do that, but we're collecting all the data now, so it can absolutely be used to look at, you know, pre-construction and then during construction.
And are you, when are you going to start? The intent of that question is, are we going to have a year of baseline data, a calendar year of baseline data before you start?
We will not with the current monitors, but now there is monitors that were in the location, I think both locations
Yeah.
before, that was administered by the county.
Yeah, we have the non-regulatory grade monitors that we've had in place for several years, but no, we won't have a full year of regulatory data that will be on hand.
Okay. And the reason I ask is because those monitors, it was reported recently by our public health director that they haven't done continuous data collection. They've had maintenance challenges.
That's true.
So
one of the things that CDOT will help us with is, as the data comes in pre-construction, during construction, and in an ongoing way, if the numbers look concerning or are not meeting thresholds for safety, how to then use that data and partner with CDPHE or regulatory bodies who can then help us use the data and use the monitors to get to a place where we can use the data and measure it in a regulatory. We not only have to have regulatory grade monitors, we have to collect it in a regulatory grade way and a regulatory environment. And so having the monitors in place is a great initial step. And then, but all of those things, a lot of things need to fall in place, but having them in place, having CDOT helping us collect the data and build a dashboard that we can talk about how to present that information to the public. All of those things are putting us in a very good position to provide better information to the public and get the data we need to determine whether or not maybe we are a non-attainment zone or to really know that.
now I notice we're not writing into this who is going to perform the maintenance of those over the lifetime of them. And I don't know, the lifetime might be forever. Is the lifetime forever? And who's doing the maintenance?
So during construction, we are doing the maintenance of it. Now, post-construction, after substantial completion and what that looks like in perpetuity, I think is to be determined. I know, Amy, you've had some discussions with CDOT about what happens to those. And,
yes.
Maybe you can elaborate on the plan, but I think it's to be determined.
Yeah, I have had an informal conversation with Director Liu, who has invited us to send a letter to her requesting that the monitors be donated to Clear Creek County upon completion of the project. They are somewhat costly to maintain, but that's still something that would be available to us going forward. And in terms of not having that documented as of yet, one of the kind of cool things about our approach with this 1041 permit is, since it's phased, that type of observation, noting something that we can add as we one of the things that Fred and I sort of grappled with as we figured out how to approach this is what are the section specific questions we need to do and what are the project wide conditions, and most of the project wide conditions will be added when the central section submission is made, which is the final submittal. So this is going to be a cumulative 1041 permit process that we will build on and add to as we go.
Okay. I know, I remember looking at the price tags for how expensive they are. I remember the grant application for support from the federal government.
Right.
I don't know if local taxpayers can or should be responsible to continue to maintain those and replace them, right, as they need replacement. And this highway is going to be here for a long time, so we should be thinking about it over the long run. That said, I don't know, Sean, I think I'm okay with moving forward with it as it's written, knowing that we'll have other opportunities to insist on this.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
Perhaps George CDOT's presentation could be helpful too,
Yeah, you know what, let's get through this. I think that's wise. Sean, if you don't have any more questions, maybe we proceed with the applicant presentation.
Yep.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. Well, I want to thank the Board of County Commissioners for having us here today and also for consideration of our 1041 permit application. With me today, let me introduce myself. I'm Kurt Kiyanka with CDOT. I'm the Floyd Hill Project Director. And with me today, I have Francesca Tornado, our environmental expert. And then I have Matt Aguirre, who is our consultant design project manager. And we're each give you a little bit of the presentation here. Fred, thank you for the outstanding presentation. You covered a lot of the same stuff that I'm going to cover here. So I'll be brief on some of that and maybe elaborate on some of the other things. But give you a quick project overview, look at the schedule, look at the different design elements in the east, west, and central section of it. And then Francesca is going to talk about some of the environmental aspects of the project and then leave some time for discussion and questions at the end. So project purpose, this project is needed. I think anybody who drives the corridor knows that this is a bottleneck. And it has deficient bridges that have patchwork all over them and have reached the end of their useful life. And so the project purpose is really to improve that travel reliability, safety, mobility, and address the deficient infrastructure that was built a long time ago for this section of I-70 from the top of Floyd Hill to the eastern edge of Idaho Springs. And so this is kind of an updated map looking at it. Fred presented the same thing, but really looking at those different sections that we have broken down in that phased permit approach. So looking at that east section from basically exit 248. Now we have a little bit of work with wildlife fencing and things going on prior to that, but that's really the start of the work in between County Road 65 and Homestead. The section will carry on down to Johnson's Gulch, where the central section will pick up as it goes down around the corner to Hidden Valley Central City Parkway. That's the end of the central section where the west section starts. And west section goes from Central City Parkway, Hidden Valley, to exit 241, that first exit of Idaho Springs. So why is the project needed? Well, we know that there is high peak traffic volumes in limited capacity. We have those 3 lanes coming all the way from Denver, all the way up to the top of Floyd Hill, headed to the west. As you start making your way down Floyd Hill, it drops to that 2 lanes. And then as you go down around, and then you tie in at the Veterans Memorial Tunnels to the recently created Mexel Lane, it opens that up to that extra capacity during those peak times. And, we really see those unreliable travel times. weekends, holidays, ski season, summer season, and it'll back up extensively all the way from the top of Floyd Hill back to Genesee and even C470 during some of those peak times. And so, and then looking out the window today as the snow's coming down, you look at those closures that we have and they just make it worse. The detour for Floyd Hill is not an easy detour. You have 285, but really if you're looking for a way to get around, it's up I-80 up around in Wyoming. And so, making this safer through here will help improve that, including the, rock fall that we see, the infrastructure where we have, the bridge needing repairs and closures for that. And then that kind of gets into the safety concerns. If you drive through there and you go down to the bottom of Floyd Hill, that's a sub 45 mile an hour rated curve as you go down there. And we're flattening out those curves to achieve that 55 mile an hour design speed. We're bringing sight distance up to standard. We're doing standard shoulders. And one of the things that Matt will talk about, this is different than the Mountain Express lane. Mountain Express lane is kind of an interim condition where we're utilizing the shoulder as an express lane. This is not that. This is similar to to what you see down in Denver on US 36 on 25, where you have the standard shoulders, you have that buffer in between the general purpose lanes and the express lane, and then you have the standard shoulders. And this will be operated 24/7 as opposed to Mexel that is, has the different requirements only during those peak times. Also, this is needed to address the aging and failing infrastructure, specifically those bridges at the bottom of Floyd Hill. And then also to improve the infrastructure for pedestrian and bicycle users between US 6 and Idaho Springs. We're committed to reconstructing the Greenway Trail from Veterans Memorial Tunnels to US 6. And one of the other big components of the project is that lack of redundancy. When I-70 gets shut down, there's not a good detour, and especially depending on where it gets shut down. So adding that connection from US 6 to County Road 314 completes that frontage road connection and just gives another redundant route through here. Fred talked about this a little bit, but CSS has been everything for Floyd Hill, working together to solve our different problems down here. And the design that is today that, even if you go and look at the EA that was completed in 2020, the design today looks much different than what that is. And I think it is an improvement. And it's, I think, directly related to all of our CSS meetings and the influence that our stakeholders have had working with us to create the design that is today. Some of the things you see up on the screen, you look at the massive amount of time commitment from all of our CSS that has been put into the project to make it what it is today. 16 PLT meetings, 37 technical team meetings, 33 issue task force meetings, and then other group coordination throughout the project development to get where we are today. And we are absolutely committed to continuing that on as we go to deliver these subsequent packages and then ultimately into construction and follow that all the way through completion and beyond. So just a list, and I think this is really, diving a little bit deeper into CSS. You look at all of the different stakeholders that we have on our project leadership team and our technical team who have contributed to the project and to what the project is today. And we absolutely appreciate all the support and the different perspectives that we have had throughout the process. And I really appreciate the process, and I can speak very highly of what it is and what it has done for Floyd Hill and what we're delivering out here and what it's going to be, driving up here today, just looking at what it's going to be in the future. And I think it's going to be a big improvement for this section of highway and for the community as well. So diving into the schedule real quick, and I know Fred presented on this. Floyd Hill is being delivered as a CMGC project, and what that allows us to do is to break out Floyd Hill into these different packages. And, while we have 100% plans in the east section, we're still developing plans. West section, that's our next one. They're sitting at about 60%, and then we're about 30% in our central section. And so it really allows us to get out there, start constructing this as we complete the design of the subsequent packages. The other big benefit to CMGC is it allows us to bring on a contractor as a construction manager, and that's that CM portion of the CMGC. And that allows to get input from a contractor. We have great input from our CSS groups for different concerns from communities, things like that. Now we also have the contractor to say, guys, I can't build this, or consider this, it makes it easier for us to build it. So that's one of the big benefits to CMGC as we move here. But, the project, generally speaking, delivered in those 3 packages. We talked about the breakout of that central section to get some kind of early access done. But east section first, we'll be back hopefully in the fall for the west section, 1041 permit. And then for the central section, depending on how that looks with the early access, but that'll be in next year of 2024. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matt here, who will go over some of the project design elements.
Thank you, Kurt. And I'll be brief because I think everyone's kind of talked broadly about what the overarching improvements are, but it is that third lane. And when we're talking about shoulder widths, we're talking about a full 6-foot inside shoulder and a full 10-foot wide outside shoulder minimum. There are locations where we will have more, but that's kind of really just order of magnitude what we're talking in terms of shoulder width. So in terms of feel, it's going to feel a lot wider, hopefully more safe. In terms of addressing those safety and operation improvements that Kurt noted. So we will have that full third westbound express lane throughout the project limits, where we are adding that connection that I think is going to be very impactful from the US 6 interchange to Hidden Valley, really giving that connectivity and redundancy that Kurt noted. We're also going to have an auxiliary lane that I think is going to be really helpful for traffic getting on, going eastbound at the bottom of Floyd Hill. For traffic that really needs help getting up to speed and really not impacting the rest of the general purpose lanes. We're also going to be reconstructing highway interchanges. There are some non-standard interchanges that are on the system right now. It's atypical to get on from the left side or get off from the left side, as happens now at US 6. So anything that we're doing, we're going to be making sure that we're looking at things from a standard approach to make sure that we're addressing driver expectancy. I think we're all pretty used to, the exits being on the right. I get on from the right, I merge to the left. So, trying to address that as well. Kurt noted that we're going to be addressing and reconstructing portions of the Greenway. We're going to be surfacing it all in concrete. But there's a section that is going to have a little bit more impactful reconstruction in that we're going to be addressing ADA compliance near Sawmill Gulch, which I think is going to be a big improvement to the usability and just the general public's interaction with that Greenway. And then we'll also talk a lot more about the environmental aspects later on in the presentation. So that's kind of overarching. With that, we'll go into some more specifics about what's going on in the different sections. So specifically for the east section, we have that third lane that's consistent throughout, but we're also making some changes and improving the interactions of the project and the highway system with wildlife, in that we will be installing wildlife fencing and a deer guard at County Road 65, and wildlife fencing all the way from the Homestead interchange to the east to Soda Creek. And then we'll also have the auxiliary lane that we talked about a little bit on the previous slide. So all of the improvements associated with the east section are going to be holding the north, basically the north edge of pavement, and then widening further to the south into the hillside, minimizing impacts as much as possible into that hillside section. So in general, those are the improvements associated with the east section. We'll keep going into the central section. I think the central section is the portion of the project that's going to look most different from the way that it does today. And a lot of that is due to the fact of how we have to improve some of those non-standard or below standard design speeds associated with the existing infrastructure. Kurt mentioned that we're going to be going up to a 55-mile-an-hour design speed. And so as such, we're going to be having some major changes associated with those alignments. So as throughout the rest of the project, we have the third lane going westbound with the full-time express lane, major improvements associated with the replacement of the bridges at the bottom of the hill. Kurt had a really good slide earlier on in the presentation that showed some of the emergency work that's done on that. So, even in the no action, I think that's going to be a major improvement. I mentioned earlier the straightening of the curves. I think it's going to be a huge improvement, safety and operations. I know that those curves at the bottom of the hill technically are designed for 45 or lower. We all know that no one drives at 45. So I hope that people don't drive them at 55 or much more than 55, but it will be a vast improvement compared to what's out there today. So another change associated with the central section that we'll talk about it more in depth is that we're relocating the westbound on-ramp to I-70 at US 6 to the Hidden Valley interchange, utilizing that new frontage road connection. And we're also eliminating the eastbound off-ramp at US 6 as well, addressing that elsewhere in the section. And obviously, that being said, we've looked at this from a modeling perspective ad nauseum through traffic operations, and we can talk more about that specifically as we get further along. We talked about the Greenway reconstruction. We will also be looking at, we're not realigning Clear Creek necessarily, but we are looking at some locations where we can make improvements through the installation of floodplain benches or improvement of habitat and just the overall recreational user experience. And that carries over into the west section, which we will switch to now. So going from the Hidden Valley interchange further to the west, approaching exit 241 defines what the west section is. And that'll really be the next section that we talk about more in detail with this group as part of the next 1041 process. The big thing is that the curve improvements, what we're doing, and it's highlighted in the picture here, the near vertical rock slope that's shown in that photo, we're widening everything to the north. We will not be, that's a rendering of what the future condition is. And I think that really speaks to the CSS process, as well as bringing on that contractor associated with the CMGC in evaluating the most efficient and least impactful ways to build the project. We were able to realign everything further north, allow the contractor a bigger space to do their work, and minimize our impacts to the traveling public. So, one of the ways we were able to eliminate that impact is that we no longer really have major impacts associated with County Road 314. And one of the things we've talked about is that we're going to be able to keep County Road 314 open for the most part. There'll be some intermittent closures due to some wall construction throughout, but for the most part, County Road 314 will be able to remain open. So, an additional piece associated with this is that we will be installing a noise wall, pending final verification with the survey, but all signs show that we'll likely be installing that noise wall. And we're planning to do that. That's progressing along as with our 60% plans. So there's a whole lot happening in design. I tried to keep it as brief as possible. I'm happy to answer questions, but with that, I will turn it over to Francesca to talk more about the environmental aspects of the project.
Thank you. As Fred mentioned, thanks. You gave a great overview of the NEPA process, National Environmental Policy Act process. Just to give a little history, Back in 2011, there was a tier 1 NEPA process that was completed for the entire I-70 mountain corridor, basically from C470 to Glenwood Springs. And this larger, broader environmental process kind of determined the general location, mode, and capacity strategies for I-70 as along that 144-mile stretch. There was a tier 1 record of decision, or ROD, that was issued for the programmatic tier 1 EIS. And that really provides a long-term vision for the 144-mile I-70 corridor, which includes a multimodal program of transit, highway safety, and other improvements. As part of that sort of tier 1 record of decision, it also acknowledged that when we come back and we have funding for a project, we have to go through a tier 2 NEPA process, which really is much more specific and focuses on analyzing project-specific impacts and issues. And that's exactly what we did for the Floyd Hill project. We evaluated that through a tier 2 NEPA process, which was an environmental assessment. As mentioned, we evaluated 2 action or build alternatives, the Canyon Viaduct alternative and the tunnel alternative, as well as a no action alternative. And as mentioned, the Canyon Viaduct alternative was identified as our preferred alternative for the project. The environmental assessment was signed by FHWA and CDOT in July of 2021. And we just issued that decision document for the NEPA process, which was a finding of no significant impact, or FONSI, which was just signed by FHWA and CDOT in January of 2023. As part of the Tier 2 NEPA process, the EA, we analyzed a variety of environmental resources, everything from air quality, recreation, threatened and endangered species, wildlife, water quality, and a whole host of others as part of that NEPA process. And as a result, the project includes more than 100 mitigation commitments to minimize impacts to the project and surrounding environmental resources and the communities during construction, which includes minimizing dust, stormwater runoff, controlling noxious weeds, minimizing vehicle emissions, looking at lighting, and of course, disturbance of any contaminated sites or hazardous materials. We'll also be looking at measures to protect sensitive waters and wetland resources, such as installing protective fencing or establishing no work zones. As mentioned, we have installed already 2 air quality monitors, and we'll be tracking specific air quality parameters during construction. We'll also be looking to minimize rockfall potential to protect construction workers as well as the traveling public via the installation of any type of mesh or other netting or other protective measures. Specific permanent environmental enhancements that are incorporated into the project. We have about 8 acres of riparian or streamside habitat restoration that we'll be implementing along Clear Creek. We'll be looking to reduce channelization and improving fish habitat in Clear Creek. We'll be realigning a portion of I-70 above Clear Creek, which will increase the recreational and ecological benefits. We'll be enhancing safe wildlife passage and minimizing wildlife vehicle collisions. As Matt mentioned, we will be installing a noise wall in eastern Idaho Springs, subject to a survey of our benefited receptors or residences in the area that will ultimately reduce traffic noise for the residents that live in that location near the highway. And we'll also be looking at reducing, interstate traffic on our local roads. And that was kind of just a general overview of the environmental. And now, if there's any questions or discussion points.
I have one more thing that I would like to add. And Fred, you mentioned that we had 3 people reach out, the Tourism Bureau, the quarry owner, and then a local resident. And the Floyd Hill project team has been in contact with all 3. And I just wanted to speak to the welcome sign. We're going to protect that in place and make sure that we don't disturb that. The quarry owner, we're working with Fry and we will determine that as we move forward in the central section. We're likely have some snow fence going on the structure, and so that might serve a dual purpose like that. But one of those things to be determined But we have reached out to Fry. And then with the local resident that reached out, we have been in contact with them. We are going to do a survey of the properties in the close vicinity to any blasting operation. We are having an open house on April 20th that we are reaching out to the affected homeowners in the community that can come and learn about what to expect, what the pre-survey looks like, and then what the post-survey as well. And so we have reached out to them and invited the homeowner to our open house on April 20th.
Is that the neighborhood in the construction area? Does it include the neighborhood in Idaho Springs for the sound wall?
It does not. We were kind of tailoring this one specific to the homeowners in the direct area, especially for this east section where there will be blasting activities to make everybody aware what to expect and things like that. But once we get a little farther in design on the sound wall, we will be putting out the survey to the homeowners affected right there by exit 241.
Sean, I should probably defer to you. What questions do you have?
I don't know that I really have any specific questions. I guess one question is in terms of blasting and activities like that, what's the schedule on a daily basis in terms of when does it start and when does it conclude? Or, any type of like highly impactful activities with respect to the neighbors.
So I can loosely speak to that. I think there's still a lot to be determined, and I think it depends on the number of blasts we're needing in each section. I believe there could be approximately 50 blasts needed for the east section. Those have to be done during daytime hours. They will likely result similar to what was done for Twin Tunnels in a traffic hold of I-70, 20-minute traffic hold, midday, not during those peak times, and get it done, open the highway back up. And then, again, those assessments of nearby property owners and wells and things like that to ensure that we're not having any negative effect on any personal property.
And Sean, I just remembered that maybe best practice is to have public comment now so that any questions we have can be informed by that. But
I think that's a good idea.
And I have a question for, I think probably you, Peter. I know we have our consultant in the room. I would like to invite our consultant to ask questions as a member of our team rather than public comment. She's also a member of the public, so she can do that too.
No, that's fine with me. It's your pleasure.
Okay, then we're going to go ahead and open public comment. And Cindy, I don't think this is going to be your only opportunity to ask questions, but is there any public comment?
Yes, this is a comment rather than a question, actually. When Clear Creek County reviewed the EA in 2020 and 2021, the county issued a formal disagreement or objection to the findings in relation to cultural resources. We did not agree with the Section 106 finding that changed a cultural resource designation, nor did we agree with the Section 4F finding. Those don't impact the east section at all. The only reason I bring them up is so they don't get lost. They do impact the central section. At this time, the central section design is being done in such a fashion that it makes those questions moot because the resources are not in any way disturbed. But I don't want us to lose that off the table. Because we did submit our content, through our attorneys, both Bob Leffler at the time and Becky Almond. We submitted those objections quite formally, so I just don't want them to get lost. off of the consideration, so that when we're looking at environmental, we always do indicate where we are in those. And otherwise, I would say, you know, yes, I've spent all 6 years with you guys. It has been, the CSS is an amazing process. It really is, and there is not always agreement in the room, but it always comes out with a collaborative solution, which I think is the point.
Thank you, and I share your concern regarding that historic rail bed and its lack of acknowledgement in the EIS.
But we seem to be taking care of that.
Yeah.
So we agreed with FHWA that we hoped that the question could become moot.
Okay. Is there any additional public comment? Anything you're seeing online, Megan?
Nope.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Sean, please continue.
Let's see. Tell me a little bit about how the conflict between making progress and accommodating peak traffic during the summer rush and during the ski season, how's that gonna pan out?
Great question. And we are committed to keeping lanes open during those peak travel times. So that means if there's 3 lanes there today, there'll be 3 lanes there during those peak times. If there's 2 lanes in the westbound, we're going to keep those 2 lanes. Now, little caveat on that, you know, we're in order to facilitate the work, lanes will be narrowed to 11 foot in shoulders as well. But, you know, the ultimate goal is to keep traffic moving the way it is today through there. Lane closures will be done during those off-peak times, utilizing night work during those peak travel times. Yeah, our goal is to keep traffic moving through there and to do that and to do it in the least impactful way that we can.
And just the lane widths are 12 on the right lane, 11 in the middle, and 10 in the peak passenger eastbound lane. Is that how it is now?
No.
No, not quite.
No, eastbound, you've got 12, 11, and 11. There's nothing that's down to 10, is my understanding.
I don't believe so.
And westbound, it was determined that the peak period of 11 was too tight. Well, I guess it was determined that the 1 foot off of the barrier was too tight. So westbound has an additional foot in the peak period shoulder lane. But no, they're not 10 foot.
No.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. It just seems that way driving.
Seems
stopped
very tight.
eastbound.
That's what the white line's for.
Yep.
Okay, I think those are my questions for now. Thanks.
Okay, and Amy, you had a comment.
One of the conditions that Fred mentioned is that CDOT will come back and share a more detailed transportation management plan and a more detailed communications plan to talk about our public information and how CDOT will be sharing information with the public, as well as an emergency response plan. And so we'll come back for a work session to share that information with you all as the BOCC for the east section. And then that will be a ongoing process for each of the 3 packages, so that there's an opportunity for feedback, lessons learned, et cetera, throughout this process on those 3 critical elements: transportation management, the communications and emergency response. And the transportation management plan is informed by an annual study of peak period patterns, which do tend to change, as we've all probably observed, as patterns shift. I think as more and more people are on 4-day work weeks and schools are on 4-day weeks, more traffic is moving to Thursdays, for example. And summer versus spring versus fall versus winter all have pretty distinct patterns, more and more. And that type of thing will be reflected in the transportation management plans that CDOT uses, because it's in all of our interests, including the construction teams, to make sure that they are accommodating peak traffic as it actually occurs. So we'll be talking more about that in detail.
Thank you. And managing peak traffic is important. Another thing that's really important is communicating closures to the traveling public. I think 75% of the people who are employed in Clear Creek County travel to the metro area. And so there's, I know there has been consternation around how that was managed when we were doing the twin tunnels. I think there's currently consternation around how that's managed and communicated around the sun glare closures. And I think this might be an opportunity to improve that situation as well. This is just my opinion. I would love to see a direct outreach tool be utilized where people can opt in to receive text messages about pending closures.
We have that. And so to anybody that is listening, please go to our Floyd Hill Project website and sign up for those text messages. Our goal is not to send you a text every day, but to send out those texts when we do have those events, whether it's a closure and things like that. But great point, and 100% our goal is to do it better.
Yeah, and not related to this hearing, but the sun glare closures is something I hear pretty regularly about because they happen unannounced and seem to not be consistent in their start times.
Great feedback.
In fact, I've been caught on the wrong end of those a couple myself. Okay, that's the traffic management plan. I think I want to ask, I know this isn't related to the east end, but you mentioned pending assessments on that noise wall. And then you mentioned pending survey results. Is it basically that if you find that the community wants that noise wall, you will install it?
Correct, yeah. There has to be 50%, over 50% in favor of construction of the noise wall for it to be deemed feasible. And then it will move forward and constructed.
Is that 50% of respondents or 50% of the people you ask?
Respondents.
Should be pretty easy.
Yeah.
That threshold. Okay, let's go back to the environmental conditions requirements. I already talked about my thoughts about the air quality. On the water quality, are the structures that you're talking about building designed to mitigate salinity, or are we hoping that the salinity is mitigated as the water travels through the trenches?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's been a point of discussion for many years along the corridor. There currently are no control measures that we can design and construct to control salinity. It's going to have to be something we discuss more on a maintenance operation basis, which is very also difficult to have a lot of influence over. So it's a really challenging topic and one that a variety of states are trying to tackle, but currently we just don't have any really great solutions to deal with the salinity issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any aspirational engineers out there? So we're going to continue to monitor it and we're going to try to address it. I think when you say through operations management by putting less salt on the roads, is that
one potential point, as long as, you have to balance that with safety. So those are always challenging discussions when you're talking about safety versus de-icing liquids. So
safety and remaining open.
Right. So
right.
Yeah, there's a lot of competing interests there. So it's a challenging topic for sure.
Okay. Just looking through my notes here.
Francesca, the stilling ponds, will they help in that issue at all, or are they, I've never heard of a pond, or are they essentially to slow down the flow?
Slow down the flow and for sedimentation issues as well. Those can be pretty effective.
Okay. I think I got a little confused, and I think I know the answer. Just in reading about the project description on what page is this? Page 24 of the packet. That additional third lane going westbound will always be charged? Or will it sometimes not be charged?
The intent right now is for it to be operational and charging 24/7 with the exception of maintenance periods.
Okay. And I think I hear the implication that you want the flexibility to decide that you don't have to charge for it during certain times. Am I reading too much into your words?
I think it will always be charged. I
Yes.
think they are not really, but yeah, it will always be charged. The rate may change based on the peak or whether or not the peak period lane is open. Because if the peak period lane is open, then in theory, the length of travel in a toll lane would be from the top of Floyd Hill all the way to Empire. If it's not peak period, then the length of the tolled lane would be only from the top of Floyd Hill to the Veterans Memorial Tunnel. So the amount of money for the lane would change.
Good point. And lots of those are to be determined that we're working through now. But I do believe the intent is, other than the initial kind of testing period where tolls will likely be waived, but after that, they will be in place 24/7.
Okay. And then I want to talk about ongoing greenway maintenance costs. And I have kind of a set of questions that I think probably aren't appropriate for this hearing, more about how we're going to figure out how to finance those maintenance costs. I think the question that's appropriate for this hearing is, does approval of this permit, or are there any agreements in place that bind us to maintain that in any certain way or to any certain standard?
Yeah, the east section does not contain any greenway elements. Those are primarily focused on the west and the central section. And so I think those are discussions that we've kind of started to have. I think a lot of it is tied with the right-of-way process that we're going through right now, that you'll be hearing from us here very shortly about, since you're the primary right-of-way holder, that we will be contacting for the central and west section and what that looks like and what those elements are and things, I would say to be determined, tied to the central and west sections.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the extent of my questions. Sean, did any other questions come up for you?
I don't think so. Obviously, this is an extremely important project, not only for our citizens, but for people who live in the state and travel through our county. So I'm very excited that this is underway and pleased that it's we're taking this very seriously and following all the appropriate steps that the process laid out for us.
Yeah, I agree. I think, we're always trying to, in these hearings, balance, is there a net benefit? I think in this case, there is a net benefit. The things I'll continue to have my eye on is are we monitoring air quality, water quality closely enough? And do we have solid enough action plans if we don't see the results we want to see? That's kind of the thing on the other end of that scale for me. That I'll continue to watch as we go through these hearings. Otherwise, yeah, I think it's really clear that the benefits of this project to our residents and constituents, as well as to the region, outweigh the impacts. And so I think I'm ready to support this resolution number 2323 with the modifications that Fred mentioned earlier, and would be happy to hear a motion if we can get some support in constructing it.
Yeah, I'm happy to make the motion. I move we approve resolution 23-23, resolutions for the CDOT I-70 Floyd Hill 1041 permit hearing. And I guess this is specifically the eastern section, correct?
Yes.
Might I offer, in addition to, with the modifications that Fred Rolandhagen is about to articulate?
That's fair. Accepted.
Okay, So what I'm showing on the screen is the resolution with the, going past the whereases and everything to the stipulations and conditions. So here are their environmental conditions. Everything that is in black everything is in black is what was in your packet. And so what is in green are those two technical and minor changes that we worked with CDOT on. First one is under the water quality section. The second was under the noise section. Noise is a very technical change. Water quality, the water quality one, as I'd said before, rather than trying to stipulate a requirement now, basically let the CSS process that's already set up to identify the best way for water quality testing.
Satisfied by that?
Perfect.
Okay, I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for your time. Looking forward to the work.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the project being done.
Good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. And our next item on the agenda is an 11 o'clock public hearing to consider approval of a supplemental appropriation to the E911 fund. That's going to start at 11 o'clock and the board is in recess until then.
And that's fair anyway.
Okay, I think we're ready to go. It's 11 o'clock. I'm staring passive aggressively at my staff that's still talking.
Okay, yeah. You want me to do anything?
So this is a public hearing to consider approval of a supplemental appropriation to the E911 fund for some capital costs in the sheriff's office.
Good morning, Commissioner. Thank you. As you said, this is a public hearing. Notice of this public hearing was provided and made in the Clear Creek Current as required in compliance with state law. A copy of the public hearing notice is in your packet. We are requesting a supplemental appropriation of approximately $85,000 in the E911 telephone service fund to cover 4 projects. The commissioners heard about these 4 specific items at the March 7th work session. They relate to projects that were either underway in 2022 and now need to move into the next phase and be completed, or a couple of items need to happen in 23 as well in order to maintain continuity of service in our E911 operation. We believe that there are plenty of surcharge, E911 surcharge revenue will cover this appropriation. And staff recommends approval of the resolution, and I'm here to answer questions, and the sheriff's office is here as well and can answer specific project questions.
Okay, because this is a public hearing, why don't we go ahead and start with public comment? Is there any public that wishes to comment? Megan, do you see anything on Zoom? I'll just leave that opportunity open for anyone looking for a hand raise button.
Nope. Nope. I pretty much recognize all the names too, so I don't see anybody coming in a comment, so.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and close public comment. Sean, what questions do you have? I'll defer to you.
These are all the items that were discussed a month or so ago. Is that true?
Is correct. Yes, sir.
Has anything materially changed from then until now?
On those items, no, nothing has changed.
Okay, yeah, I think I had a pretty good understanding of them before, so I don't believe I have any additional questions now.
I don't think I do either. We had a robust conversation about this about a month ago, and I think our concerns were satisfied, and we directed staff to bring this appropriation to us. Thank you for doing so as quickly as possible, because I know these projects need to proceed. So with that, I think I'm ready to support this supplemental appropriation. Sean?
Yeah.
I would welcome a motion.
I move that we approve the supplemental appropriation regarding the sheriff's office as described by staff.
Okay. Referring, of course, to resolution 23-26. I second that.
Yeah, I'm looking at the packet and I don't see that listed here, but yeah, okay, fair enough.
So a motion is on the table. Second's been made. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Maria. The next agenda item begins at 11:30. It is a semi-annual update with the Clear Creek County Tourism Bureau, followed by at 12:30 County Wildland Fire Mitigation Grant change to a micro grant program. So the board is going to go in recess until we may start the Tourism Bureau update early if they can accommodate that. If not, we will start at 11:30.
Is it true we do not have any executive sessions today?
That is correct. And I did want to mention to the chair that Jeremy Jones is on the attendee list. I'm not sure, and it looks like Suzanne is also around. I'm not sure if you would want to take the wildland fire mitigation first. That may not be a long item.
It would be my pleasure to do that. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay. Then let's take up the 12:30.
Okay, give me a few seconds. It keeps kicking me off and I gotta get on here. So cross over Suzanne. panelist. And then Jeremy.
Hi, it's Suzanne. I need just about a minute or so since I wasn't quite expecting to start now. Can you give me about a minute?
Suzanne, we'll give you as much time as you need. Let us know when you're ready.
Thank you.
We'll be in recess till then.
It's Suzanne. I'm going to change. I was on my phone. I'm going to change from my phone to my laptop. So I'm just going to hang up on the phone and Megan, if you can send me over to the panelists in about a minute. Thanks.
Okay, sounds good.
Suzanne, it looks like you might be ready. It looks like you're having some audio challenges.
Sure.
Well, actually, that's what it sounds like.
Are you muted on your computer? Like on your keyboard?
I will say sometimes this happens with the new Zoom system we have, the Zoom phone. If you take your laptop and then connect home, sometimes you have to change the speaker and the mic.
Oh, yeah.
I struggle with that
You use a headset in the office.
Or if you go from Teams to GoToMeeting to Zoom, you have to change it every single time. You have to update your speakers and your microphone because they all use different settings. And
How are we doing now?
So maybe this was look at that.
I think Megan has a thought in your Zoom settings. You might have the wrong microphone selected.
That was actually Beth that said that. So I'm not that smart.
if you click the top left of your screen, the little shield, green shield with a check mark on it. If you click on that, and then it should give you a link to your speaker microphone settings. Just make sure you're on the laptop. Or if you can't see that, can you not see that?
Are you talking about this thing?
Yeah, click on that. And go to settings, the little gear wheel. Yeah. So you're down, which is where you're supposed to be. I just want to make sure she's adjusted that and that.
Yeah, the speaker and the microphone. I don't know.
Can we hear Jeremy?
I'm hoping.
Yep. Okay, he's good. So Jeremy's on.
I've been working like 3 years to figure this system out, so I'm finally almost there.
It says Suzanne is connecting to
We're
audio.
knocking on wood for you,
Oh, she's
Jeremy.
gonna use her phone.
I'm telling you.
That's what she's doing.
Okay, that's smart.
Suzanne's gonna use her phone for audio and then use her camera for video.
About that.
Love it. We can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, I tried I tried what you suggested and I'm sure it will work if I take more time to figure it out, but it just didn't work and I didn't want to waste any more time. So thanks.
No, you're fine.
Okay, are we ready?
I think so. Yeah. This is the This is to consider county wildland mitigation grant change to a micro grant program with Suzanne Bocha and Assistant Chief Jeremy Jones of the Clear Creek Fire Authority. Please proceed.
Yeah, so this has been a discussion that OEM and Clear Creek Fire Authority have been having for a little while, and we decided to put it in writing. So Jeremy framed it out. Bottom line is we wanted to change the way that we offered the county wildfire mitigation grant. And I've put that in the document that you have. Saying that, and we'll discuss that in just a second, saying that there is a grant opportunity due today that might impact our decision and how we go about this. So things with wildfire related grants are happening very quickly. And so we wanted to bring your attention to the way that we administer this annual grant, talk about changes we can make to the program to make it more equitable. And I'd like to see if we can agree on that and then talk about the opportunity of this other grant that may impact the level of funding that we administer for the grant this year. So to start, long story short, so we've been administering this grant for, excuse me, the County Wildfire Mitigation Grant, the 50% reimbursement grant for, I think it's 8 years. And there's a lot of interest. The way that it works now is we put out an application and it goes through, it's for individuals, but through homeowners associations. And last year we got so many more requests for funding than funding we have available. So people are interested in this program. They're investing in wildfire mitigation on their properties. The other piece is that we've had folks up in the Evergreen area, the high wildfire risk areas that are not part of homeowners associations, but that would still like to see an opportunity for them to apply for local mitigation funds. So that is why we revised our thought on how to administer this. And I'll ask Jeremy to talk in more detail on it in just a second. But essentially what it is instead of going through homeowners associations to administer the funding, it would be given to individuals on a small level, like up to $5,000. Because the way that it works now is the homeowners associations, they do a lot of work to prepare for this application and for the entire process. So essentially what they have to do now is collect names, addresses of individuals that want to participate in the program over the late spring, summer, and early fall. That has worked for many years. I've also gotten some feedback that it's a little tough sometimes for during the summer months when people are traveling and they might, if they can't get in touch with the person that said they originally wanted to participate, they ask if they can kind of switch a person out. So there's a lot of kind of that a bit more administrative burden on the groups and the leads of those HOAs, excuse me, for this grant opportunity than seems necessary. They also, they've been, I get feedback about, well, what if I do mitigation on my property, but my neighbor's not going to? And we know there are other grants available for other programs, but as far as the county grant goes, word's been spreading. They really like this grant. They love that the county's investing in this, but it's limited to who has the amount of time to gather a group together and get all the individuals to commit, now to complete the work by the end of the fall. So we were thinking that we wanted to go a different route, and we're calling it, I am calling it a micro grant program because it's easier to understand and for me to explain. Essentially, it would be granting funds to individuals versus through an HOA. And to me, that really gets to the more equitable distribution of wildland mitigation funds that we're trying to get to in the county. Saying that, Jeremy, I'd like to hand it over to you to maybe walk through it a little bit more with what you wrote up for the description of the program.
All right, yeah, good morning. We'll kind of make this quick and easy. What started this, and it goes back to residents on Witter Gulch. Sean can appreciate that because he drives through there, but they don't have an HOA, but they would like to apply for grants in some capacity. So this started about a year ago with some conversations, and then there's other areas within the county that have the same problem. Mill Creek and Fall River residents have the same exact issue. They don't have an HOA, a formal HOA, but they've got 5 neighbors that want to get together and do some projects. So the gist of this is to make it we'll call it a micro grant, make it a micro grant program. But so if I've got 4 neighbors and we all want to, for example, we've got a group of neighbors on Pine Slope and Idaho Springs that want to mitigate some trees. They want to cut down 7 hazard trees that are critical next to their home, and they would like to have an opportunity for some funding. Under the previous program, that wasn't available. Under this program, they can get together and consolidate all of their contractor costs, which is right about $10,000, and apply for a 50% match to that. project, and if selected, it would offset their costs. They would mitigate their neighborhood collectively, and that would be the benefit. So what I'm trying to do with this is spread the money out, whether it's 25,000 or 50,000, depending on how the funding goes on the future, spread it out to as many neighborhoods as we can and be equitable to everybody, from the individual homeowner to the Old Squaw Pass neighborhood. There was, I think, 15 different neighbors that are a part of that grant program. So what I'm asking for you guys is this permission to make this change for starting this year. And this doesn't have to be a permanent change. This is let's try this and see if it works and see if we get the results. Talking to the property owners, the consolidation of records at the end of the year takes hours. It's like weekend after weekend to consolidate and close out the grant. On top of that, we're doing the same amount of work in OEM to process these grant closeouts. And I think this program would thin that out a little bit, and we can better utilize staff time, and we can definitely have better utilization of the public's time trying to get grants. The key part of this is it's labor in kind for match. That's currently $29 an hour. That's the standard grant rate through Colorado State Forestry. So it allows them to match in kind. There are a lot of residents that say, I don't have the money to spend on mitigation, but I do have the time all summer to do the hours. And I think it allows for that a little easier. And the point of the last part of this is the selection process of the OEM. I think OEM would reach out to other people within the community to sit on that selection board. I think there should be a mix of people from the entire county, if at all possible, to make these selections, to make it equitable. And then the last part of that is we ask them to take pictures of the projects and then release those pictures to us so that we can use those for other grant purposes at the county level, or even just public information, just to share what's being done within the county, because Megan can attest to that. We're trying to do a better job of sharing what people are actually doing at all levels, and mitigation is a key part of that, so we can share these things out. That's the gist of it. It's basically a $5,000 up to $5,000 mini grant, but I think it cleans up a lot of problems with the current program as far as man hours. It cleans up some staff time. It's way easier to manage, and I think it's equitable from the single homeowner to I've got 25 neighbors in my HOA that all want to join across the county. So I'm open for questions and thoughts from you guys, because you live this every day. I don't.
Thank you. And I think I should start out by asking for some advice from Peter. You mentioned a resident and I just thought about this now, the resident on Pine Slope who intends to apply is my mother. I think that creates some potential for conflict of interest. I don't think there's an actual conflict of interest.
No, but by you're disclosing it, you're following the correct statutory ethics rules here.
Okay, thank you. She's one of about 9,500 people in this county that I hope participate in this program. Okay, thank you. Sean, I'll defer to you.
Yeah, thanks. First off, I completely endorse and agree with the sentiment of moving this the availability of these grants beyond homeowners associations. I personally live in a neighborhood that does not have a homeowners association, and I think probably the majority of unincorporated Clear Creek fits into that category. I don't necessarily think I have concerns about this. One of the things that comes to mind for me, however, is a single neighbor doing a bang-up job of mitigation doesn't necessarily help the neighborhood that much. And there's a gentleman on Upper Bear Creek who did a drastic mitigation on his property, and it looks drastic. And none of his neighbors did anything. And when a big flame front blows through, I don't think that's really going to have any material impact on anything. Hopefully I'm wrong. So I guess what I'm getting at is, how do we structure this where we are encouraging neighbors to work together to mitigate contiguous lots and areas. Because if I do a great job of mitigation on my property and my neighbors don't do anything, my house is still going to get showered with flaming materials, and there's a good chance something still bad's going to happen. So anyway, those are my initial sentiments. And I don't know how we're, I mean, historically, if I remember correctly, the problem we used to have was no one would apply, or only super well organized, well funded neighborhoods that had a lot of social cohesiveness, generally in my part of the world, would apply, and no one else would apply. And so none of the funds went to District 1 or District 3. So anyway, I support this. I would love to see us figure out a way that we make sure that people work together and that that has more impact rather than less for just a single homeowner. Maybe we say you can't apply as a single homeowner. I don't know.
I think that's fair. I think to Sean's point is what we're trying to get out, and then everybody's doing the same thing. We're trying to do property evaluations and have some, honestly, some frank conversations with neighbors. Sometimes these are well received, sometimes they're not. We've been doing this in York Gulch, for example. There are 4 or 5 homes in York Gulch that are generally a hazard to the neighborhood, and that are now starting to take action due to pressure from the neighbors after some frank conversations. I hope that continues. I know it's happening over in Evergreen. When your evaluation of your home is directly impacted by lack of effort, I would say, on your neighbor's part, we're trying to put that out there in an honest way. I would agree with that. Maybe we do in this grant that you have to be at least two properties to qualify. I think that's fair. I think the majority of the people we've talked to, it'll be 3 and 4 properties that are continuous, right? That all want to do it. Or in the case of York Gulch with the HOA, now we've got them engaged. I think we've got 15 property owners that all want to do work together in a cohesive way, and this would help them offset those costs. But I'm not sure we have a real good solution to make sure that we mitigate more than one home in a neighborhood. And I know exactly which house Sean's talking about. It is drastic. There's 2 or 3 there, and there's some on Soda Creek that are drastic, next to 4 houses that haven't been mitigated in the last 43 years. So I think a lot of this goes along with our education programs and how we get the messaging out there, and us being willing to have non-PC conversations with homeowners for the first time probably in a lot of years, explaining what the true hazard to their house is, to their neighbors are, and how that relates to what they've done on their property. And hopefully that starts to shift people's thought process throughout the county. That's my long answer. I would say we're working with some education for purposes on this, and some property evaluations to try to have these conversations.
And I think also in our developing our evaluation criteria that we use to review and score these applications, Sean, to your point, we can look at how locations, we can use a lot of criteria to encourage that mitigation in areas that are going to make the largest impact of those that apply. So there's always that give and take. I mean, if individuals want to apply and they're ready to go and they're ready to spend their funding, but it is slightly, it's not the #1 area we want to target, we don't want to discourage them from mitigating. At the same time, we need to establish some of that, objective criteria to score, to help guide our, resident mitigation efforts towards where we want it to go. That builds on a conversation that took place at the last wildfire coordination meeting that Jeremy organizes and runs each month, talking about the upcoming wildfire season. So, the State Forest Service was there, U.S. Forest Service was there, just talking about the different projects and initiatives that they've got going on, and figuring out, asking the question about how can they and Clear Creek try to work together more for these programs, recognizing the funding challenges and all that. So I think there are opportunities there that the way that we can score these can help us towards our, kind of strategic goal with wildland fire mitigation.
One other thing just came to mind. I would be open to the possibility of having different levels of grant matching to kind of match our strategic objectives. Because if there were some neighborhoods that weren't as strategic as others, it might still make sense to give them a 25% match or something less, to make sure that the dollars have as much impact as possible.
That's a good idea.
Seems reasonable. I appreciate, you can handle this through selection criteria and how you grade these applications. Assuming we're going to get many more applications than 10, we'll have hard decisions to make anyway. And I might just add, this is just commentary and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but the Jones effect is one of the most powerful motivating factors in our society. And Jeremy, I'm referring to some other Jones. But I think having one neighbor use this grant and do it and having their neighbor say, hey, how'd you get that done? And, oh, well, the county helped me out. It can, maybe help drive what I think we can articulate as a social change management problem. So that's just some commentary from me. I have a couple of questions. Well, I have some questions. And I welcome this change. And so these aren't to beat this idea up. I remember the last time it was brought up was a few years ago in a Board of County Commissioners meeting. And at that time that I brought it up, staff had responded with a concern that this would increase demand on staff time to process a bunch of small grants rather than a few bigger ones. Has that changed or how has your thinking changed around that?
Well, I think the way that we want to revise the application and how we intend to administer the grants would be different. So it would maybe initially, it would be the same level of effort in the sense that, I'd want to make sure that we had a range of folks on the selection group to review the applications from different parts of the county, from different organizations. So getting that group back together, getting it on the calendar, getting everyone to take time to review those. But what we're doing this time is once the decision is made, it's less paperwork on our end and on the applicant's end. So I'm not seeing this as a increase in time. As Jeremy and I talked through it, it seemed more and more that, probably after, we revised the first application for this year, after that, it would probably be a reduction in time. Especially towards the end of the year. What happens with the grant as it currently is, folks finish up their mitigation projects by the end of October as it currently stands. They try to get all of the receipts and documentation of hours spent for in-kind contributions, all of those things. And before, their after photos along with their before photos, put it somewhere online or email it, which has for some reason been very challenging and takes a long time for the applicants. And then, sifting through all those and then going back to folks and saying, well, we're missing this receipt or we're doing this, or we're doing this. So I don't see it as an increase. I really welcome the revision of this. I wanted to revise the application for a while, but just, now I think is a good time to do it. So did you have another question, George?
Yeah, and thank you. I really appreciate that. This is just a quick one. I assume Evergreen Fire Rescue likes this concept as well. This is safe to assume.
Safe to assume.
Okay. And then I want to ask about the state grant that's doubling this fund. Is that what's the name of that grant, and is it an ongoing opportunity?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. They're actually, well, there's even more than 2 grants, but there are kind of 2 that apply related to this right now. Saying that, the one that I think that is the most simple explanation, the fact that it would kind of essentially double our funds for this purpose,
That for 2022-23 calendar year is closed. It doesn't open again until August. So the one that essentially would give us 50% to expand this program, that is something that we'll look for the application in August. There is a different grant application that is due today that I'd like us to pursue, although that might change what the amount that we can offer for local mitigation funding. So that one's the 2023 Incentives for Local Government Grant Program. And that is something that by the State Forest Service, again, but that it encourages those jurisdictions, those counties that already have some sort of revenue or funding going towards local mitigation programs, excuse me, to be able to expand that. But it is for, well, it can be for mitigation. It can be for planning purposes, like updating our community wildfire protection plan. It can be for purchasing equipment, but you have to have that funding that exists now. It's not like they will give us funding and then we go and run around and try to find essentially 50% to match what the state gives us. It's one of those things that, you're kind of incentivized by the fact that, you have all invested in wildfire mitigation funding for years. The challenge with that is that we can use it for a couple different things. The grant application that we submitted, we heard back from, it was the federal CWDG, Community Wildfire Defense Grant, the one we submitted $250,000 application in order to update the CWPP, the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. We were not awarded that grant. So we won't get those funds to update the CWPP. We did look at a report that there were no counties in Colorado that received funding for that. On the flip side, my colleague and OEM, Melissa, she's in a state training and she heard that one county did. So it's either way, it's very, very few, one, if any, counties received that kind of planning type of grant funding. So knowing that, and this all happened in the last few days or so. So all of this is kind of running through my head, trying to figure out how can we take advantage of funds that are available to multiply the funds that we have, to benefit our residents. So we can go about this Incentives for Local Government Program application a couple of ways. The first way is to put in for, use all of the $50,000 that is allocated for this, excuse me, local wildfire mitigation county fund as funding to receive another 50K, so get a total of 100K to update our CWPP. That leaves zero funding for this micro grant program that we're talking about. We could put in for this grant for something other than the CWPP, for something other than planning. It still leaves us with that big hole about trying to update our community wildfire protection plan. And we've gotten a few questions in the past probably year and a half from different organizations and municipalities about kind of how can we help them to update their, the PIPs, the community wildfire protection implementation plans that come out of that updated CWPP. So all these things, as you can see clearly, are interconnected. So I was trying to figure out yesterday, like what approach to take, because I don't want to take, funding away from our local mitigation efforts, as we just talked through a micro grant program. On the flip side, I'm trying to figure out what we can do to apply for grants that would benefit the county as a whole, and updating our 2008 protection plan would help that. So at this point, I want to do both, and we can't do both. So I would look for some feedback from you all, because what that would mean, I could apply for this grant and use only half, 25K of our county grant towards applying for this grant to update the CWPP. I don't think that's going to be enough, because essentially that would give us 50,000. And I don't believe that that would be enough based on kind of recent information that we've learned from other counties that have put out for bid for update of a CWPP. So I don't even know if getting 50,000 would be enough. Or, if we put in for 50, getting 100,000 would be enough. There's a lot of community engagement. There's a lot of meeting with folks, clearly. And then there's writing, and updating the CWPP. So I think we have a choice to make. I wish it wasn't a black and white choice, like a yes or no for either one. I wish we could do both. And I guess we could, but looking at kind of what you all might want to do related to our micro grant. The good thing is, George, the kind of matching grant that you had mentioned that could expand our grant program would be able to apply for that in August, or around August, they say. So the good news is that we still have an opportunity to apply for that. It just won't impact us this calendar year for our micro grant program. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. I know I said a lot of stuff, but that's all. Those are all the things that are happening with all these different grant programs and matching and things like that.
Okay, thank you. Let me see here. A little bit of feedback. Getting those CWPIPs is crucial. And I wonder if we can look at ARPA funding or I'm speaking as one member of this board. I think we have to figure out how to fund that. I also think that given the state of the conversations that are being had around this micro grant program as a pending opportunity with property owners that are kind of sort of planning on it, I think it would be a mistake for us to not offer at least the $50,000 that we said we budgeted. That's some initial thoughts from me, and obviously we're not going to solve it in this quick hearing for feedback on the micro grant, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Sean,
and I know I kind of piled this grant discussion on afterwards because it really came, to a head, kind of like Friday and yesterday, realizing that it was going to impact our discussion. And so I didn't really want to muddy the waters, but I wanted you to be aware of these things that are coming up, with our opportunities. So then it looks like, and I would totally support that. I agree with continuing the local county mitigation grants, and look for opportunities to fund the update of the CWPP in other ways. So am I understanding correctly that you are both in agreement to essentially revise the existing county wildfire mitigation grant program to a micro grant program, taking into account, looking at the different levels of or variables for scoring, and kind of building on that, not necessarily a single person, but maybe two neighbors at a minimum applying.
Yeah, let me weigh in real quick. And I noticed we're 15 minutes into what was supposed to be our next agenda item.
Okay.
So I think we need to close this down pretty soon. But to George's point, I hope what you said will eventually be true, that the CWPPs are crucial, because many communities, those were academic efforts that resulted in some binders that went onto a shelf and then nothing actually happened afterwards. I think that's generally what has happened in the not distant past. And so I would want to make sure that that doesn't happen when we put energy and effort and money into it this time. And then I completely agree with you. I mean, this isn't what we sat down to take up today, but this, I think, has huge leverage, huge importance in terms of finding dollars to get done what we need to get done. And, sprinkling 50 grand across our county and having the homeowners roll up their sleeves for the other 50 grand. I can hardly imagine a more efficient use of our dollars. So I certainly want to preserve that. And I would even be open to increasing it depending on what the applications look like.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're in agreement, and Sean, thank you for pointing out the clock. I have one other comment, and this is just a comment.
Yep.
I know we have some nature lovers around here that really struggle with the idea of removing their trees. And I'm one of them. And one of the things that happens is once the birds start nesting in the trees, it turns into a hard no. And I don't know exactly when that is, but it might be earlier than March 14th. If there's a way to try to get this stuff approved so that projects can happen in the winter, you might have some bird lovers be more motivated to get rid of their trees.
Okay. Yeah, we can, I mean, clearly this year, no, but as we move forward, no, I like that thought. It's just, I guess this is when it always was done. And so I like looking at that change.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you both for coming, and we'll move on to the next thing, but I appreciate your thoughts and effort here.
Thank you both.
Next on the agenda, we have the semi-annual update with the Clear Creek County Tourism Bureau with Cass Patton. We'll get that started in just a moment here as Cass approaches the desk. And it is the last thing on our agenda for the day.
Hi, everybody.
Hi there.
Can I plug this in or?
Yeah, if you want to join the Zoom, I can make you a panelist and then you can share your screen. Does that work?
I can.
Does that work?
Yeah,
best?
I'll just take
Okay.
me a second.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Okay, we'll get started in just a moment.
Technology.
I know.
I know, right? All the things.
Okay, I think we're.
Oh, no, you're.
There you go. Good work.
Oh,
I would just stop share and try and share again.
Just disconnected me again for like the 5th time today.
Okay, there goes the cameras. That just popped up. Just gonna see if her camera will, or her.
It's connecting on mine. It's just not connecting on these.
Can you see it on your screen?
Yeah.
You can see her PowerPoint on
So-
your screen.
Sean, can you see the presentation? I don't need to see the presentation.
Yes, I can.
I've got it here. So we can just roll. I mean, is everybody else in the room okay with that?
Oh, that's so sad.
I know.
That's okay.
It's something with internet.
I logged out. Let's see if me logging out helps.
All right, let me try and connect and try it this way.
I just rejoined.
Oh, here we go. I've got it here.
That'd be fine. And then
That's fine with me. Yeah, I just,
you okay helping me?
yeah, no, I don't mind at all. Just if I mess something up, just tell me to scroll down or something.
Okay.
I think we're ready to go.
See, you,
Here in just a moment.
what would a presentation be without that beautiful picture from the top of Mount Evans?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean. Okay, looks like we're ready to go. Cass, thank you for joining us for the semi-annual update.
Yes, thanks for having me. Yes, thanks for having me. So just wanted to start and go to the next slide and introduce, our board, volunteer board. So we have John Sellers, who's our president. He's the marketing director with Loveland. Our vice chair is Cameron Marlin, who's the manager with the Rec Center. And then we have Alan, owner of Liquid Descents, our treasurer, and then Nicole Nembers is our secretary. And then I am your director.
Sorry.
You're okay. There you go. Awesome. So I wanted to kind of just go through what we've been doing the past few months. And so this slide I developed called Reflection, and just looking back over those past few months and some of the words that stood out that have been predominant in our planning and in our focus. We continue to address the over-tourism challenges we have in the county, looking at the need for visitor education, building strong relationships with our communities and across the county. And with that, we've been working on building our educational materials, keeping that focus on sustainability for both handles, the land and the economy, and then working to attract optimal visitors to the county and qualifying those visitors through a marriage of different ways. So with that, our methodology has pivoted to a management focus versus that overall increase of visitation that we've talked about in the past. Next slide, please. So these are just a few examples of things that we've recently completed. We're working with the Trails team, and they helped us install 12 Live Wild signs at trailheads within the county with QR codes, using Live Wild as the acronym to promote responsible recreation. We also did tabletop signage at restaurants and then public bathroom signage, as well as digital advertising, and then some forward-facing print materials and local periodicals and newspapers. Next slide, please. So we continue to implement the strategic plan that we just developed last year. And a few of these items, include in-county marketing and promotion, storytelling. We're working on developing a new recreation toolkit, building those relationships again with community members, looking at board member recruitment, and then continuing to look for grant opportunities. Okay, next slide. So this slide is really wordy. I'm glad you guys got it ahead of time. This
put this in here just so you can kind of look at the analytic data that we review on our end. This is one method we have in tracking our marketing performance. So year over year data, it showcases visitor behavior on our website. It shows us what visitors are interested in, and it allows us to see during the same time that we had a 15% lift in overall visitation to the website, and then a slight rise in new visitors to the website. And then we also, track, where are the visitors coming from? Are we getting is this a direct result of the marketing that we're doing? How are our partnerships playing out? So this data is one way that we look at that impact. And then we can also see, go back for 1 second. We can also see on here that the new campaign that we launched, the Live Wild campaign, it was the #1 web page on our site during this time frame. We had just under 35,000 visits to that web page. So that shows some success in that campaign. Okay, next slide. Thank you. The QR code that we placed at the trailheads as well as in the county on the restroom signage and the tabletop signage was specifically tracked through an online source. And we were able to see that just under 900 people have scanned that with their smartphones and as a result, taken them to that Live Wild page. As of today, we've had just over 36,000 visitors to that webpage. So we're continuing to see traffic from those signs still. And that's new visitors. So I should add that it's not repeat visitation. So this is just organic. Okay.
So the only way to learn about this website is through the QR code? So
you can access it through the website.
Okay.
This is just a way to track the QR code and the in-county promotion. So we set up this QR code with a specific URL that still goes to the same landing page, but this QR code has driven 900 scans. And then the Live Wild landing page was marketed through a series of promotionals. So we did a Google campaign. We did a geofencing retargeting campaign for people that had visited our trails this year. And it's also listed, on different marketing materials that we have. So it's a conglomerate of all the marketing we've done, but just to date, that page has seen that kind of visitation, but you can get to it just by going to our website. Okay, next slide. And then this one, other data, this one is just a few other metrics that we look at when we review to see, kind of get an idea for what our marketing and promotions are doing. We look at the lodging tax revenue. Year over year, we've had a 37% lift in lodging tax. And then, additional digital campaign insights, distribution rates, and overall total exposure for a campaign that we've been working on. So this just kind of helps us track, that return on investment, except it's a little bit more difficult without a brick and mortar. So trying to track the whole county and what we're trying to do for our businesses, this is just one way that we can look and see what the impact is that we're doing. Okay, next slide. Moving into community collaboration. Again, this is one of our focuses, really wanting to build up those partnerships, join committees, and help in ways that we can. So these are just a few of the organizations in the county and as well as other industry partners that we have participated with over the last several months. And one fun thing we have coming is the Empire Jeep Week is coming back this year. It brings about 300 Jeeps. They fill up the Star-shaped valley in Empire as about, they bring pushers and fifth wheels and all kinds of fancy RVs and obviously they're Jeeps. And then they go and do trail runs during the day. Some of the wives and children stay back and they'll do activities in the county. Typically, I guess some of the dads could too. But in general, we see a really good footprint from this. We've tried to grow in the event over my tenure here and exposing them to what we have to offer. So hopefully we can get them to, get the train for the day and, go visit the Argo or go, do car show, Jeep show, in, 6th Street, or, use our car wash in Idaho Springs to clean all the Jeeps, or, the different things that we can work with. And then obviously bringing in our food and our beer to their big top events in the evening. So that's an exciting one to be on their committee and helping making sure that our community really feels, an economic boom from their presence here. Okay, next slide. Additional meetings and special meetings and attendance that we've had over the last few months. These are just a few examples of ways that we'd like to get involved and help when we can. And if someone has a different event or something they want our help with, it's as easy as reaching out to me and letting me know that, hey, we've got this Bojo celebration. We'd love to have the Tourism Bureau, be a part of it, and we jumped right in, and we were happy to be there this past weekend, and that was a great event. So anytime things like that come up, we love to just jump in head first. Next slide, please. Okay, so looking ahead, one more slide. So here's our projects and our some projects and plans that we have coming up. One exciting thing, I don't know if it made the list, I think kind of did, but we purchased Colorado.com cities pages for Idaho Springs and Georgetown this year. So that means we have full control over the content of those pages. And our goal is to get with the individual towns and their promotional committees and find out how to really leverage those pages to support those towns. So we have that in addition to some of the general things we're doing. We're going to be running a new smart geofencing campaign again here in a few weeks. We have a billboard down in the Dumont, Lawson, Downeyville area. That's going to remain up through September. We have additional website enhancements on our page happening, constantly building new pages and trying to amplify the businesses in the community. Working on trail maps, recreation maps, whitewater safety maps. And to that regard, we created this cool new cartoon character of CJ Minor, with all of his rafting gear and the appropriate attire you should have if you're going on Clear Creek. And so we've been working with Jonathan Butcher and Matt Taylor and the team over there to really make sure that we get everything involved. And also Alan with Liquid Descent has made sure that we're calling things what they are supposed to be called. It is a dry bag. It is not just a satchel, right? And things like that. So making sure that, we have everything properly outlined and included. Just like you don't want to have just a thing of rope in your boat, you want to have a rope bag, and there's reasons for that. And so this is a fun new contribution we're going to do. I believe these are going to be part of the Know Before You Go sign for fishing access and I'm trying to say Care for Colorado etiquette and rafting safety that's going to be posted at some of our put-ins along Clear Creek. So that's an exciting one we're working on. And then next slide. This is a big one for us. The 2023 Clear Creek County Visitor Guide. I think, the Live Wild, Visit Responsibly message will still be front and center on the cover. However, it will get another facelift this year. And then, we want to bring it before you as the commission to ask you, would you like to contribute to this? Would you like to be a part of our visitor guide? It's kind of a longstanding publication that doesn't meet the normal standards. It's not littered with advertising. It literally is still a directory. It gives people information at their fingertips to our county, and it is a really great tool for our businesses as well to help them know where to send guests, if they need a locksmith, if they need to know where to go to dinner or where you can go rafting or how you can, find out about the roundabout or just want to see a map of the county. This guide has been helpful in that. I believe we're going to remain a digital platform, so keep that sustainability footprint, printing less than we have in the past, really thinking about where we're going to distribute them, where we're going to, prioritize the placement of these. But I think that there's opportunity for the commissioners to either, write a welcome letter to visitors, to the county, or talk about a featured topic. Could be responsible, recreation, could be, live like a local. It could be Clear Creek because it could be a thousand different things. But we just wanted to open it up to you and get your feedback on the visitor guide and kind of finish with this as maybe just a short conversation about what you all might want to see come out of the visitor guide for this year. So that's what I have. So thank you. And I'll give you the table to talk about this part. So.
Great. Sean, should I continue to defer to you? Did we lose him?
No, he's there.
Yeah. Thanks for the update. I guess I have a little bit of a related question. I mean, we all know what's happened in Georgetown with their ballot initiative and them essentially carving out revenue that was going to the Tourism Bureau for their own purposes. How does that affect how you guys are going to operate going forward?
I guess I'll quickly defer it back to you. We aren't informed as the outcome of that. If anything's happened to it, we have not been updated on that situation.
It sounds like maybe a communication challenge. It had been reported to me that you were, but that we do need to dedicate some time to talking about the path forward. What's happened is about 40% of our revenues that were collected in Georgetown will no longer be. And so we have to figure out, how the Tourism Bureau can operate on a smaller budget. What other funding opportunities there might be, like selling ads in this visitor guide. I don't know. That's just like I'm kind of spitballing, but that's what Sean is referring to. And it's so county collections will go down 40% beginning in July 1. And I think, rather than ask us all to speak off the cuff about what that means for the future of the Tourism Bureau, maybe we could try to schedule, a dedicated session to discuss that with you and your board about just what that looks like moving forward.
Okay, that would be great.
And maybe we can ask the finance team to get them some numbers about, like future budget projections in this context.
Sure.
Okay. When was that official? I feel like this is new news to me. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Sean, and, definitely welcome this conversation.
Peter, you probably have the best handle on the timeline of when has a communication gone out to the.
Yes.
Has it? I have not seen a copy, but I did ask for one.
I thought it went out. I mean, I guess.
I checked with
before you
the
left.
I checked with the town administrator before, or town manager, I don't know.
Town administrator.
Town administrator, about a week and a half ago, and the response I got was that it would be going out.
That's true. We did approve a letter.
Several weeks ago, actually.
So this might be news to a broader group of people that Clear Creek County will not be collecting its lodging tax within Georgetown as of July 1. And I think Sean and I were of the understanding that had already been communicated. So.
As I indicated, we did provide a final version a while ago.
Okay.
Not sure why.
So we definitely need to schedule a time to discuss that because that begs a lot of important questions about the future of our ability to fund countywide tourism advertising, as well as support confronting the housing crisis, supporting childcare, all of the other things that our ballot measure enabled us to do.
Yeah, and I hesitate to bring this up, but I'm going to anyway. My understanding, based on conversations with business owners of Georgetown, is the impetus behind their ballot initiative was that they felt that our efforts as a tourism team were not driving business to their cash registers in Georgetown. And that led them to want to take control of those revenues themselves so that they could better direct them. So I'm not looking for a response right now, but I think as part of that conversation we have in the future, I think we're overdue maybe for sort of philosophical discussion about the value of directing tourists to our public lands as opposed to a little bit more of a focus on the municipalities. And I'll just leave it at that.
I think that's a good way to frame the challenge we face. And I know this board is kind of, maybe the right phrase is danced around that topic. And I think it's time for us to really bring that topic up in a way that's, focused with dedicated time for us to, share our opinions and include your board and, yeah.
Okay. When do you envision a work session?
We could make that happen pretty quick.
I think I want to respect you and your board's ability to take some time and wrap their heads around this and have some thoughts. So I wouldn't say it should be in 2 weeks because you might want to have a board meeting happen in between.
Right, our board meeting is typically the third Tuesday of the month, so that would be a conflict. But yes, I think maybe the week after that, or I think it should happen in before we get too close to June, end of June.
Yeah.
Tuesday in April, so we could meet first meeting in May.
Pretty short order, yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
May 2nd.
Okay, I can propose that to the board and see if they feel comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe for tentatively, we could get that on your agenda.
Yeah, and I just want to acknowledge that you're probably very shocked and
maybe a little
sorry to have this be dropped on you in a public meeting. I was of the understanding that you knew about this, and I think Sean was too.
Yeah, for sure.
On the question you asked of us, would we like to contribute a welcome letter or something? I think the answer is yes. I know we have a fantastic PO who's an excellent writer and can help us kind of think through what we might want to put in that. Is that, Sean, do you agree?
Yeah.
I think I think I can appropriately channel Randy by saying he'd be interested as well. He's likely to be interested.
Yep.
That'd be wonderful. And, I think the last version touched on some of the important things, whether it be, pick up your poop when you're on visiting a trail, and some of the other good stewardship character traits, as well as the Care for Colorado Leave No Trace principles and some of the ethical things that we're talking about as a state. And so I believe our intention is to include those again. But if there's other feature topics or things that you feel would be important for us to include, I think, I'd love to even just get an email with ideas from the commissioners or from you, Megan, or from anyone that's even online listening to just help us understand what we can present information, to the visiting public that would be beneficial for us as a county, right? I mean, that's our goal, is to be that voice and help share information in another capacity, right? So I think I'm just opening up that opportunity, whatever that looks like for you guys.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just an early thought, but it could even emphasize how awesome our historic districts are and our commercial districts are, and encourage people to go read the plaques on the minor streets around and learn about the history of those buildings and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just an initial thought.
That'd be great.
My thoughts are similar, but I would take it beyond that. I don't know that my view is really that valuable in in the context. I live on the East End, and I'm not near one of the municipalities. I think it would be important to get robust community feedback from the business district, right? 6th Street in Georgetown, and the business district in Idaho Springs as well, just to make sure that they feel like their interests are being appropriately represented as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's important to pull them in. I know the Chamber of Commerce is funded by Idaho Springs now for some marketing efforts. And, Georgetown has some money, and it'd be nice to know how they view a relationship moving forward, where they want to collaborate, all of that.
They're hiring their own marketing promotions person.
Yeah. I know they're hiring a staff person. And
correct.
A good relationship there, I think, is going to be as important as it's ever been. So, is there anything else that I guess I have a request? Thank you for sharing all of this data. And I think you did like some kind of a hotel capacity occupancy study as part of your work.
Yes.
Would you share that with me? I would just love to dig into that and try to understand it.
Yes, I believe that there are portions that we can share. However, there was some of it that was left to the privacy of the hoteliers. So it would depend on what is actually able to be shared, but I will share with you what I'm allowed to share with you.
Yeah. If there's something that you've agreed to remain confidential, of course.
Okay, I can do that.
Understandable.
Did you guys do that with EDC or you did it one by yourself?
We hired a separate party out of Summit County.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay. All right.
I didn't know, did EDC complete one recently too?
Well, no, it was a few years ago.
Okay, I'm like, Lindsay and I should talk.
I know. I want to see if I can find it real quick.
Okay.
'Cause I think I have a copy of it.
Would you like for me to share it with the whole commission?
Probably. And by the time I get something,
sure,
probably best for all of them to have it. All of us.
Go ahead and send it to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can do that. And I think that there was, one gigantic hole in it because of the vacation rentals. So this only touched on, the actual hotels in the county versus the vacation rentals, because I understand you have a different firm that helps with that as the county. So we didn't go down that rabbit hole. So just so you know, when you look at this data, this is not going to include any short-term rentals.
That makes sense. There's an important difference between short-term rentals and hotels.
Right. And an astronomical price tag to look into all of it. So.
Knowledge costs money.
It does. It does. And then I guess one other thing, just since we're just chatting about things, the 1531 Colorado Boulevard, the airlock there, our idea is still to turn that into a micro information center. We are waiting to hear back from the grant that we applied for with the state tourism office. So thank you for your letter of support for that. And hopefully we'll know in the next, couple of weeks if that's something that comes through. And if it is, it gives us the opportunity to have an interactive digital kiosk, which is sort of like a robot to help people that stop in get wayfinding information about the county. The idea is that it would generate, you'd go through, you kind of build an itinerary or do something fun, and then it would pop up a QR code you'd shoot with your phone, and then you would have your information to take with you. So it would be very, very cool technology if it does come to fruition. And like I said, it'll just be, a tall robot kind of touchscreen interactive kiosk. So that would be very cool. And it could definitely help the county. And if it did something that works really well, I could see it being, fully integrated into our welcome centers at some point too, so.
Okay. Sean, anything else?
I don't think so. Thanks for the update. And my apologies for the surprise. I just figured that everyone knew at this point, but obviously I was incorrect.
Thank you for sharing it. Now we are fully informed.
And a lot more to come on that topic. Georgetown will have the opportunity to every year has the opportunity to decide that They think our ability to confront the housing crisis is more important than cost savings for people who are staying in hotels in Georgetown. So hopefully that's a conversation we look forward to having with them as well.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and find that hotel report and I'll send it over to you.
Oh, the EDC one?
Yeah, so you can kind of compare results if that helps.
It would be interesting to see, because what do you think hers was done prior to COVID?
Yes, I know it was.
Okay. And then ours was done, I believe, after COVID.
Okay.
So it would be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Before and after, yeah.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
With that, there's nothing further on the agenda. So the meeting of the Board of County Commissioners is adjourned. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks.